be nice to get a drink or two.
Here is, what did Jesus teach about salvation? Because we know what Christianity says about salvation, but our contention is essentially that what Christianity teaches about salvation is quite a deviation from what Jesus taught about salvation.
Well, there's no such thing as sophisticated Koine Greek. Koine Greek is unsophisticated by definition.
Oh my gosh, dude, the Greek New Testament documents are highly intelligent.
With all due respect, that indicates that you are not able to read Greek fluently, because
was Jesus's parents, who apparently were a part of the Essene group of some sort, wrong for bringing these doves to the temple?
Jesus is compromising his religious and moral values for the sake of culture? Is that what you're saying?
Jesus didn't just ask anybody to join his group. He had very specific criteria he looked for, most notably a humble, repentant heart and faith.
Well, did that guy not fit the criteria to be one of his disciples, to follow his group?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
If there's one instance, it invalidates your position.
This is the problem with the synoptics and the canonical gospels in general, is there's many, many narrative conflictions like this. And so it's hard to parse out what is history from what is narrative.
After that is when Jesus said, "Come follow me and become fishers of men." And they left their nets.
Of course,
behind.
because he was telling them to leave their family businesses to come follow him, because he had a better plan for them, and it wasn't catching fish anymore, it was men. But he still helped them catch fish. He's helping them catch it.
Miracle fish, yeah.
So it's not real fish. They're magic fish. They're not real fish.
Jesus seemed to be a big Jeremiah fan, that the lying pen of the scribes, the pen that writes the Torah, has falsified the Torah, and he condemns them for this. So it's claiming in the Bible itself that there are alterations that have weight. And he's the same prophet that's condemning animal sacrifice. He says God never commanded animal sacrifice. And why I want to bring up that point is because
that's not what he says.
Except where he does, you have to say that was added later too, and then you're just doing the same thing in the Old Testament that you're doing in the Gospels here. So you have to remove these things from the Old Testament to get that narrative, and then you have to remove those things in the New Testament and say, see, there's a narrative, when actually you're just doing exactly what Epiphanius condemns. You're doing exactly what Jerome was condemning. You're doing exactly what Eusebius is condemning, and that is you have a belief system that has allowed you to add, remove, and edit text to make them what you want. And you're actually trying to use these men to defend your position when they're actually condemning your position.
So you would just reject what Jesus says when it doesn't comport to what you wanted to say?
I don't reject anything. I don't read the Bible with a binary lens. I try to find the most likely interpretation of the passage.
Based on Aaron.
How can humans convey accurately what Jesus said and remember what he said, and more importantly, what he meant? Divine scriptures were given in John 14. He promised the Holy Spirit to be brought to his apostles so that they would not only just remember.
About saying that you're not debating anybody, and now we're doing this debate. I think it's important for you guys. Ready to rock?
Let's do it, man.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to say too, I don't know how you feel about this, everybody. And Anton, you can totally edit this out. I actually kind of wanted to open with a prayer. You guys down for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
I would love that.
Yeah, cool. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us all together in this moment. You've led everybody on individual paths to just garner as much about your nature and who you are. And it's so beautiful to have us all here together to just commune together and ultimately manifest the kingdom of heaven here on earth. And we are so, so grateful for the way that you lead and guide us. And we just pray, we're here to discuss conversation over debate more than anything. I pray that we all connect and that we all find a way to meet each other and to meet you through that process. And, I think that in this moment with the time that we're in, the inauguration, MLK, all of these things, it's auspicious times, and we're all here for a reason. We all know that. So we love you, we trust you, and we step into this moment together with peace and love and the unification that we all want to bring to the table. In Christ's name, amen.
In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Beautiful. All right, let's do this, guys. So first thing I want to start with is I think we should establish a couple things. Number one, Wesley, I think for yourself as well as myself, for taking some heat on like putting that video out saying that you're not debating anybody and now we're doing this debate. I think it's important for people to understand how this all came to be. I don't know the full context. I know what happened after, like when I reached out to Aubrey and that whole thing. But maybe if you just want to start, or Aaron, however you guys want to do it, just to establish that so we don't, get attacked more than we have been.
Yeah, probably inevitable. But happy to give the context. So I think it was probably, Wes, like October, somewhere around there. Someone sent me a reaction clip Wes did to one of my Instagram reels. So I went on there and watched it and then posted a reply. And I believe some of his followers just were in the comments like, well, why don't you debate Wes about this? And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I tagged Wes and said, hey, you want to jump on an IG Live and debate this idea? And Wes was like, no, let's set up like a 2-on-2, like legit debate. I said, cool. And this was at least a few weeks before all the Billy craziness happened. I think Wes had told me that he had already had the debate. I think it was like a week before this, actually. And then it was probably some months later that it finally all went live and the insanity ensued. And so here we are. So I guess the long and short of it is we had this debate, scheduled long before the Billy craziness happened.
Yeah. I think that's a good setup, in that even in that video that I did where I said I'm probably not going to debate you, that was mainly a reaction to the fact that I was getting hundreds of people requesting debates, and I said in that video, there are certain things that are in the works or on my calendar already, and I'm going to go through with that, but I'm not going to come up with something just in the moment and agree to debate the literal hundreds of people who are feeling that I'm obligated to do so right now. So this thing was in the works even before I released the Billy Carson conversation on December 8th. So it's one of those things in the list, or on the list, that was already in the works. So I'm still probably not going to debate you if you request it right now. But this was an outlier in that whole conversation.
Can I just add to that too, man? I can't even imagine, Wes, what's probably coming your way. I mean, it's unbelievable. So hats off to you for that. I also wanted to add too that the funny part about it all too is that weeks before, actually, Aaron and I even met. My buddy Ali Tabrizi, who Wes, was sending me some of your work, and I was like, oh, interesting. I've never, I just had started catching up on your stuff, and it was at the same time that I met Aaron, and then boom, you guys have this back and forth. Meanwhile, Anton and I are friends from years and years ago. I had no idea he was in the background somewhere there. And then Aaron was like, hey, you want to join me on this? The way that it just came together was so, divine in some kind of way. It's pretty unbelievable. So.
Yeah. And I was speaking to Wes about all of this, and I was like, oh, I got the perfect kind of neutral character. And that guy was named Aubrey. So I reached out to Aubrey Marcus, and he was totally down, but essentially what ended up happening was just logistically, Wesley coming to America to go to Texas, and then the whole Joe Rogan thing, and then the PBD thing. And because of his schedule and having this all pre-planned, it was just like, it's not going to make sense for Aubrey to do it. So Aaron actually brought up the idea of me being the moderator. And this is, for everybody listening, this is my first time doing something like this. I am very experienced with this stuff. I've just never done it myself. I've trained people on it and helped other people do it. So I think, we all have a mutual love for Jesus, and I think it's going to be a great conversation. And it's been very divine, if you will, how it all came together. And I'm happy we can do it.
Likewise, brother.
Likewise.
Cool. All right. So let's get into this.
Hey, Carrots, you're gonna wake the baby. I gotta get to work.
This is important, sir. I think you're...
This is GTV. In December 2017, a well-known role-playing game series had its 30th anniversary. No, not that one. Well, okay, that one too. But there is another. That series is Phantasy Star. Sega's alternative to Final Fantasy gave Squaresoft a run for its money way back when. And while it exists in a different form these days, it's still going strong. So get yourself a die mate, and hey, why not go big? Get a tri-mate and celebrate, because Phantasy Star is 30. In the first half of the 1980s, RPGs were not the most popular genre of games in Japan. If anything, space shooters were preferred at this time. Back then, very few RPGs were available, and almost all were for PCs and made in America. After the release of Dragon Quest by Enix in 1986, Japan quickly turned on to the genre, and a gold rush to create the next RPG hit was on. Many of these games came to the family computer and MSX. But around this time, Sega had released hardware that could outperform both. Sega had released the SG-1000 to compete with Nintendo's family computer in 1983. It was quickly replaced and upgraded in the form of the SG-1002 in 1984, and then with the Mark III in 1985. One final upgrade came in 1987, when the existing Mark III was included with an FM sound card, giving the machine the best audio available at the time. That all-in-one package was called the Master System. Sega had hardware superior to Nintendo, and planned to deliver superior games as well. One game planned to highlight the Master System would be a massive RPG that aimed to differentiate itself from Dragon Quest, and to outdo it in every possible way. The team would include Rieko Kodama and Yuji Naka, both well known by Sega fans for their hand in dozens of games for the Master System and Mega Drive. Chieko Aoki would create the world of Phantasy Star, as she had submitted her draft of the storyline for the game, which had been given approval for production. Aoki was so dedicated to the story idea she had been working on that the majority of dialogue used in the game had already been written before her draft was submitted. Instead of one world, there would be three, each with its own geography, climate, history, and culture. Instead of one hero, there would be four. Medieval themes were replaced with a high-tech science fiction world, complete with space travel. Swords and shields would still exist, but be complemented with guns and lightsabers. Non-playable characters would have a larger role than just giving hints and info, and became integral to the quest. Phantasy Star would also take advantage of the FM sound chip in the Master System, with Tokuhiku Uwabo, simply known as Bo, providing background themes that would match the tone of each area in the game. Phantasy Star would feature scrolling 3D maze-like dungeons that helped set the game apart from other RPGs at the time and elevate it to a higher level. Yuji Naka was responsible for creating these dungeons, something that until you saw it seemed impossible to do in the 8-bit days. If you know the story of Phantasy Star well, you'll know that the names, dates, and certain spellings differ between regions and each game. For simplicity's sake, we'll use the proper in-game naming conventions codified in the Japanese releases, with anglicized pronunciations. The story of Phantasy Star takes place in the Algol star system, far away in the Andromeda Galaxy, centuries in the future. 3 planets orbit the star Algol. The first planet, Palma, is a temperate world populated with intelligent humans who have mastered technology and space travel. The second planet, Motavia, is a desert planet with no natural rainfall, inhabited natively by creatures who are short, furry, and have beaks. The third planet, Dazorus, is a frozen wasteland, populated by pockets of intelligent and sometimes dishonest creatures who are tall with green skin. In the year 342 after Waiz, a young Palmanian girl named Alisa Landale came home to find her brother Nero being accused by police officers of attempting to overthrow Lashik, the leader of Algol, and paying the ultimate price. Alisa then vows to avenge her brother and begins her quest. Along the way, she befriends a cat named Meow and meets a friend of her brother named Tyrone. Finally, an Esper named Lutz joins them. The four traverse all the planets, Palma, Motavia, and Dazorus, meeting interesting people and a few robots as well, all while unlocking the secrets of who Lashik actually is and saving Algol from the ultimate evil, an all-powerful demon known as the Dark Force. Phantasy Star would be released on December 20th, 1987, just a few days after its main competitor, Final Fantasy. It received high praise for its graphical detail, advanced sound, and amazing 3D dungeons. In 1988, Phantasy Star would come to America and Europe, though with a few changes. The FM sound would be removed. While the music was still great, there's a noticeable difference in quality without the enhancement. Other changes come in the form of localization, where character names were changed or shortened to fit the constraints of the game that were already set. The Japanese Phantasy Star allowed space for 4 Japanese characters for each name, meaning that there are also only 4 English letters available. Alisa became Alice, Tyrone became Odin, Lutz became Noah. Other non-playable characters change, with Lashik becoming Lassic and the Dark Force becoming Dark Falls. In 1988, these changes didn't really matter, but when comparing sequels and different translations, it can get a little confusing. Though the market share for the Master System in Japan and America was very small, the game sold well for the market share that it had, and it has gone on to be remembered as the best Sega Master System game that was ever made. In 1993, it was reissued on the Mega Drive, the only Master System game to receive this treatment. In 1988, work on Phantasy Star 2 began, originally planned for the Master System. However, with the newer 16-bit Mega Drive being readied for release, development was moved there. Furthermore, the team, comprised of many from the first game, had only 6 months to finish Phantasy Star 2. This forced the game to go through some changes, the biggest one being that the 3D dungeons were gone, replaced with the standard top-down viewpoint. Had Phantasy Star 2 been done on the Master System, carrying the same code to the new game would have been easy. But with new hardware to learn and a shorter time frame than usual, it just couldn't be done. So the traditional RPG dungeon is part of Phantasy Star 2. The ability to save anywhere was also removed. It was done in part to keep the player from saving in a situation where they'll never be able to escape, and having to restart all over from the beginning, which was a common complaint Sega had received after Phantasy Star 1 was released. With the power of 16-bit hardware, the on-screen graphics were brighter and more colorful. The music was more varied and layered. The overall campaign would also be much longer. The story of Phantasy Star 2 would take place almost 1,000 years after the original game. In the time between the first and second games, the planet Motavia had become terraformed due to a supercomputer called Mother Brain. A large migration from Palma to Motavia had transpired, as well as expanded colonies on Dazorus for mining purposes. With Mother Brain controlling the ecology of Motavia and the necessities of daily life, the people began to become complacent, and the legends of Alisa Landale from centuries ago were forgotten. A young boy named Eustace, known in English as Rolf, is a descendant of Alisa. At age 10, he is orphaned in a spaceship crash. He grows up to become a government agent in Paseo, the capital of Motavia. A few months before the start of the game's events, Eustace befriends Ney, a half-human, half-biomonster. In the year 1284, after Waiz, Eustace is ordered to investigate outbreaks of biomonsters on Motavia. His investigation leads him to befriend others who were on their own missions involving the biomonsters and Mother Brain. The quest leads Eustace and his new allies to discover the forgotten past of Algol, and again battle the Dark Force. Phantasy Star: The End of the Golden Age was released on March 21st, 1989 in Japan. It was the first RPG for the Mega Drive. It would be translated into English and brought to the US in March 1990 and Europe in November 1990 simply as Phantasy Star 2. The English version would come with a massive guidebook covering all of the dungeons, playable characters, and usable items. With the home RPG genre still not yet mainstream, this was a vital aid to help those who may not yet have been accustomed to large dungeons or level grinding. By 1990, repeated installments of RPGs were starting to become the norm. 1990 saw the release of the 4th Dragon Quest and the 3rd Final Fantasy in Japan. The Phantasy Star series would soon get its 3rd installment, as Phantasy Star 3 was planned for release in 1990. While there was no doubt that after the success of the first 2 games, that a 3rd would follow, staff changes and other projects taking precedence would affect the development of Phantasy Star 3. Knowing that the Nintendo Super Famicom was on the horizon and would steal a large share of the emerging 16-bit market, Sega started development of a game that would be a Mario killer. Yuji Naka and Rieko Kodama, who were an integral part in the first 2 Phantasy Stars, were put on the project, a game that later came to be known as Sonic the Hedgehog. Most of 1990 and 1991 was spent making Sonic the best possible game it could be, to combat the upcoming Super Mario World. And it was. But it left Phantasy Star 3 with a new team, and with the new team came a new direction. Hirodono Saiki, known as S2 in the credits, was the only member from the Phantasy Star 2 team to work on Phantasy Star 3. His role in the second game was minor, but for the third, he was put fully in charge. The staff that would join him on this game would mostly come from the team who had developed Golden Axe. None of the team members, except for S2, had any experience with the Phantasy Star series at all. The game looks, sounds, and plays very differently from the first two. To compare Phantasy Star 2 and 3, the graphics in 2 have a sharper look to them. A strong anime style with sharp outlines and single shades of different colors were used. 3 uses more colors on screen at once, but the look is softer, with varying shades of a few colors blending together. Comparing the graphics of Phantasy Star 3 and Golden Axe, which was produced by the same team, you can see a lot of similarities in the use of color and shading. The story and locations would also be different from the first two Phantasy Stars. Gone is the Algol system and its planets. Palmanians, Motavians, and Dazorians are replaced with Delayans and Arakians. The world that they live in is medieval, rather than futuristic. Phantasy Star 3 had a unique feature of adding a layer of audio to the game's overworld music based on how many playable characters were in the party. In addition to that, the battle system was simplified by using pictograms, and the overall battle speed was made much faster. The gameplay tries to do something unique in having branching paths and multiple endings. The playable characters span 3 generations. Depending on which path you choose, by deciding whom to marry at different stages of the game, the future characters will have different appearances, names, and abilities. These differences also affect the ending. The story of Phantasy Star 3 takes place 2,000 years after the ending of Phantasy Star 2. A mass evacuation of Palmanians was executed before the planet Palma was destroyed. Hundreds of domed ships sailed through space looking for a new home. 1,000 years later, the Dark Force had followed them and destroyed the ships, until only 2 remained, the Elisa 3 and the Neo Palma. Laya and Aurekio had been able to contain the Dark Force, but now 1,000 years later, the Dark Force has escaped and must be defeated again before he destroys the last remaining traces of Palma. The game was released on April 21st, 1990 in Japan as Phantasy Star, The Successors of Time, and in the West in 1991 as Phantasy Star 3, Generations of Doom. The game was not well received by fans for its diversion from the setting and history of the first 2 games. While it does come full circle and tie the series together at the very end, you have to play through a game that is very unlike the rest of the Phantasy Star series to learn that. We're only 3 games in, but the story continues. When we come back, spin-offs, side stories, remakes, and the explosive finale that is Phantasy Star 4.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
セガはロールプレイングゲームを変えてしまう。ファンタシースター。かつてない驚異のグラフィック。壮大な SF ストーリー。その秘密は4メガ。ファンタシースター。16ビット6メガ。セガファンタシースター2。目を見張るリアルキャラクター。ツインスクロール。メガドライブ対応未体験ロールプレイングゲーム。ファンタシースター2。
Okay, now we're talking Thunderblade. 1 heavily armed attack copter. Evil forces trashing your city. 12 rounds of major air-to-ground destruction. An arcade classic. Allow me. Note my aerial technique. Hey, guys, come on, you'll get your turn.
Thunderblade. Just one of 70 games from Sega. And now look for the incredible Phantasy Star. Sega, major fun and games.
Where do they see Phantasy Star?
Sega's Thunderblade, Phantasy Star, and Master System sold separately.
By the end of 1991, Sega was on the verge of overtaking Nintendo as the market leader in home games. Many fans of Phantasy Star wondered if there would even be a next installment after the disappointment of Generations of Doom. Much of 1992 would fall silent as Sonic, Echo, Shining Force, Streets of Rage, and other extremely solid titles would lead the way. The first news of Phantasy Star 4 started coming from gaming magazines near the end of 1992, with claims that the original team would return, as would the Al Ghul star system, and that it would be the last Phantasy Star game in the series. The game was planned originally for the Sega CD and would feature full animated cutscenes, bring back the full 3D dungeons of the first game, and have the working title Phantasy Star 4: The Return of Alice. By 1993, things changed, and the game would be on a cartridge, not a CD. The animated cutscenes would be replaced with comic panels. Alice would return in the game, but as an unrelated character and only in the English version. In Japan, she was called Lila. But what stayed intact was a back-to-basics game with a story about the Al Ghul star system, with the look and feel of the first two games. Rumors of the game being the end of the series were also true. The entire team from the game's past would not join in, but Rieko Kodama, who developed the first two Phantasy Star games, was put in charge of the next and last installment. The events at the end of Phantasy Star 2 would come to be known as the Great Collapse, and the people of Motavia had started to emerge from the Dark Age. A bounty hunter named Lila has taken on an apprentice named Rudy, known in English as Alice and Chaz. On a routine investigation, the two learn the cover-up of biomonster development on Motavia. Soon after, they learn about Zio, the leader of a mysterious cult that has recently formed. Along the way, others join their quest, including cyborgs and a native Motavian Andazorian. The history from the time of the Great Collapse is relearned through the comic-styled cutscenes, as is the return, once again, of the Dark Force. Phantasy Star: The End of the Millennium was released in Japan on December 17, 1993, on a 24 megabit cartridge, one of the largest ever made for the Mega Drive. At the time, there were no plans for a Western release. RPGs had grown in popularity, but were still not mainstream in the West at this point. It had also been a few years since Generations of Doom, which was not well received. By 1993, the average memory size of a game cartridge had jumped from 16 and sometimes 24 megabits, which increased cost. The time and effort to localize games and bring them to the West was often seen as a big risk, as most RPGs would cost over $60 and sell fewer units than other games that were easier to localize. Often, many localizations were canceled before release or not bothered with at all. American gaming publications were able to present screenshots of the finished, released game, but could not confirm when or if the game would ever leave Japan. In late 1994, word had come that Sega would indeed be bringing the game to the West. In February 1995, Phantasy Star 4: The End of the Millennium was released in the US for $99. Alongside Virtual Racing, it was the most expensive Sega cartridge ever. The game would also make it to Europe in December 1995. Luckily for gamers, and very rare for a game series of any genre back then, the entire series was released in all three major regions. And with the release of Phantasy Star 4, the series had come to a close. But it was far from the end. Many more Phantasy Star games are out there. 3 side games were released during the 1990s. Phantasy Star Gaiden was released for the Game Gear in Japan only in 1992. The game follows the events of Phantasy Star 1 and takes the story in an unexpected direction, as the game takes place on a world that was colonized by Alisa after she decided to leave the Al Ghul star system. Phantasy Star Adventure was another Game Gear game, also released in 1992, and also only in Japan. It was a simple puzzle adventure game that precedes Phantasy Star 2 by about 15 years, where a government agent from Paseo must investigate the disappearance of a scientist on Dozoris. Phantasy Star 2 Text Adventure was a game released for the MegaNet online service in Japan. The game features 8 separate text-based quests about each of the characters of Phantasy Star 2 prior to meeting up in the game. In 2000, Sega announced Phantasy Star Online for the Dreamcast. Featuring fully playable online campaigns, Phantasy Star Online would reboot the series, erasing all ties to previous games and embracing an action RPG battle style on a new world, Raw Gold. The game would go on to be reissued on GameCube, Xbox, and PC in various forms, with a proper sequel, Phantasy Star Online 2, seeing release in 2012. In the space between the first and second games in the online series, Sega released Phantasy Star Universe for the PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, and PC in 2006, with the spin-off Phantasy Star Portable series for PSP. The series of games was made in the same style as Online. There was a third series of action RPGs in the form of Phantasy Star Zero for the Nintendo DS, released in 2008. The game took elements of the Online and Universe series and made an original game with on- and offline features for gamers on the go. The most recent release is Phantasy Star Nova, released for the PS Vita in Japan in 2014. While the Phantasy Star Online series and its follow-ups were an interesting and well-executed series of games, longtime fans of the original series have had a chance to catch up with the series on newer hardware through the years. Phantasy Star Collection, released for the Sega Saturn only in Japan in 1998, featured all 4 original games on one disc. A second Phantasy Star Collection was released for the Game Boy Advance in America in 2002, which contained Phantasy Stars 1, 2, and 3, but not 4. Despite the title screen borrowing a scene from Phantasy Star 4. The original set of games also appeared on various Genesis and Mega Drive collections over the years. The most exciting news came in 2003 when Sega announced the Sega Ages 2500 series, which would give older Sega games modern makeovers on the PlayStation 2. 3 of the 4 original Phantasy Star games would be reissued as Phantasy Star Generation 1, 2, and 4. The games had updated graphics with multiple cutscenes and a reworked soundtrack. The game's story was also expanded, with non-playable characters having much more in-game text and relying more on interaction with them to progress through the game. Generation 1 was the first volume of Sega Ages, released in 2003. Generation 2 was volume 17 and saw release in 2005. Generation 4 was unfortunately cancelled. The final Sega Ages release was volume 32 in 2008, and that game was Phantasy Star Complete Collection, which featured all 4 original games as well as the 3 side games from the 90s. These 3 Sega Ages volumes were re-released on PS3, but the games never left Japan. English fan translations of Generation 1 and 2 have been created after years of effort by the most die-hard fans. You'd think we're finished, but there's still more to go. Monomates are real, characters are actually inspired by real people, and lots of other crazy stuff is yet to come. When we come back, the secrets of Phantasy Star are revealed.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
時を司るのは神か悪魔か。一本で4つのエンディング。キングオブ RPG。時の継承者ファンタシースター3。
セガネットゲーム。ねえ、繋がってみない？はい。すごいんだから。ねえ、繋がろう。
いきなりそんな、ネットゲームで
みんながすごくなる。世界ネット RPG ファンタシースターオンラインセガ。
What would a classic game series be without hidden secrets and lore to go along with it? In Phantasy Star, there's no shortage of neat little references and jokes that might have passed you by. The name of the series, Phantasy Star, was inspired by a Japanese pop song. In 1987, pop idol Noriko Sakai released a single called Beachside Fantasy. This song became a favorite of Yuji Naka, who worked the word into the title. The PH spelling was done to differentiate itself from other fantasy games. In the series, the characters who are the protectors of Algol and have special powers are called Espers. It sounds like a mystical word that could appear in any RPG. Esper appears in Japanese dictionaries as an English loanword, but this word does not appear in the English dictionary at all. Kind of strange, but very simply, an Esper is someone who can use ESP, an ESP-er, if you will. In Phantasy Star 1, there are some quirky, real-world references. You can't visit the governor of Motavia until you bring him a cake, which is found in a far-off cave in Palma. This makes light of the Japanese societal custom of bringing a gift when visiting someone's house, as well as the popularity of shortcake in Japan. Mickey is a character from the town of Sophia. Mickey breaks the fourth wall by asking, "Do you like Sega games?" and has different responses if the player selects yes or no. You had better say yes. Mickey is an in-game representation of Miki Morimoto, an assistant coordinator for the game. She's listed as Gamer Mickey in the credits. In the English Phantasy Star 1, you can heal yourself by consuming burgers and cola. In later games, this was changed to monomate, dimate, and trimate. The mate suffix comes from the item's original Japanese name in the first game. The item we knew as a burger was called Perori Mate, which is a pun off of the real-world snack Calorie Mate, with pero being the Japanese word for licking. Cola in Japan was called ruoginin, also a play on the word referring to arginine, an ingredient found in Japanese energy drinks. In Phantasy Star 2, to learn the technique music, you need to be trained by Utsvestia. While any character can be trained, he offers a lower price for his service to male characters, charging only 2,000 masetas, whereas females must pay 5,000 masetas. In the English version, Utsvestia says male characters look smart, while in the Japanese version, he says they look cute. The design of Rudo, full name Rudolf Steiner, was based off of actor Rutger Hauer. His name in the Japanese version is Rutger Steiner. In Phantasy Star 3, there's a bug in the beginning of the game that the programmers were apparently aware of. At the very start of the game, before you meet Maya at the wedding ceremony, you can sell your equipment at the shop and buy an escape pipe. Once Maya gets kidnapped and Rice gets imprisoned, you can use the escape pipe to escape from the dungeon. Once doing this, the story is unable to progress, and you can't leave the town. The king says to you, "You have used your escape pipe." Normally a smart move, but now I'm afraid the game can't be continued. Please press reset and try again. In Phantasy Star 4, there are nods to other Sega franchises. In Saya's collection of children's books, there are the titles Golden Axe Volume 3, A Day with Echo, and Run, Hedgehog Run. In Aido Town, there's a dance performance set to the song Pow Pow, the stage theme from Fantasy Zone. There's also a Game Gear you can find in the town of Nalia. Phantasy Star 4 was rated in America as kids to adults, but despite this, some things slipped by the ESRB. At the Hunters Guild, there's an escort who takes an interest in Chaz. In another scene, Grizz says, "Damn you, Zio." So either the ESRB didn't notice it, or that's fine for all ages. And speaking of Zio, he was designed after Nine Inch Nails singer Trent Reznor. Lastly, we come to the Algol star system, the backdrop for the series, which is actually a real star formation in outer space. Located in the constellation Perseus, Algol can be seen clearly in the night sky. It appears that someone at Sega really knew their stuff when choosing Algol. There are some eerie coincidences that can't be ignored. Algol is a 3-star system consisting of Beta Persei AA1, AA2, and AB. The two main stars orbit each other, while the third star orbits them. 3 stars, just like the 3 planets in the game. In several ancient cultures, Algol shares the same mythology. Algol is known as the Spectre's Head in Latin, and the Demon Star in English. Algol was associated with war, violence, and death in Egyptian, Greek, Chinese, and Arabic cultures. Algol is 92.8 light years from Earth. Perhaps there really is a dark force out there hovering over the Algol star system. And if that's true, then someday a signal from there may reach us, telling us of their legends. But for Sega fans, it already has. I hope you've enjoyed this look back at the Phantasy Star series. And if you're like me, you're still holding out hope that someday, some way, somehow, there will be a Phantasy Star 5. looking up to the heavens, gazing at the sea of stars, to know that somewhere out there, the saga of an advanced people is beyond our reach. Their stories were told, echoing through the darkness, with the light from those stars the only way to remember them. The echoes of a past that should not be forgotten. On December 17, 1993, Sega released Phantasy Star: The End of the Millennium for the Mega Drive in Japan, a game that would go on to be remembered as one of the greats. Even now, 30-plus years later, The End of the Millennium serves as the fourth game in the Phantasy Star series. The original entry goes back to the Mark III and Master System in 1987. Phantasy Star 1 sets the series in motion with the story of the far-flung Algol star system and its 3 planets, Palma, Motavia, and Azores. In that first adventure, a group of young warriors take on the evil King Lashik and the Dark Force to liberate Algol. The second game, released for the Mega Drive in 1989, takes place 1,000 years later. The Dark Force returns to an unsuspecting Algol, now controlled by an all-powerful supercomputer, Mother Brain. As the heroes of Phantasy Star 2 investigate, the Algol system is sent into chaos. The planet Palma explodes. The events would come to be known as the Great Collapse. Phantasy Star 3, Generations of Doom, released for the Mega Drive in 1990, continued where the previous game had left off. During the Great Collapse, hundreds of spaceships were sent out into the universe, looking for a new home. The Dark Force managed to hunt down and destroy all of these ships, save for only 2. 1,000 years after leaving Algol, the Dark Force was sealed in one of these 2 ships, and eventually forgotten, until another 1,000 years had passed, when the descendants of Palma fought for their survival once again. All 3 games were brought to the West with full English translations, and were released to critical praise. The sci-fi theme stood out during the first wave of TV game RPGs, which were mostly medieval in style. The concepts of humanity versus technology, balanced with the eternal struggles of good against evil, were highly lauded. When Generations of Doom made its way west in 1991, reviews had proclaimed it the greatest RPG of all time. Phantasy Star 3 was released at a time when Sega was at a crossroads. Prior to 1991, the company had been seen in both Japan and the US as an also-ran in the home video game space, against its main rival, Nintendo. Sega had always been more respected in regards to its arcade offerings. The Genesis and Mega Drive were positioned as a place for older, more serious gamers, where these arcade experiences could be brought home. As well, more challenging, PC-like strategy and role-playing games flourished here. In 1991, Sega overtook Nintendo as the market leader in the US. To develop some of the games that broadened Sega's audience, many key players involved in the Phantasy Star series were moved to other projects. Mainly, but not solely, the Sonic series. 1991 turned to 1992. A wave of new, enjoyable games for the Genesis and Mega Drive were sold to an eager audience. Phantasy Star 2 and 3, while still in print, faded into the background as the 16-bit era kicked into high gear. What nobody at home knew was that a new Phantasy Star was in the works all this time. Sega announced the 4th game in the series at the 1992 Tokyo Toy Show, an annual event that showed off the latest toys and video games, held the first week in June that year. No recorded video of the game in action, nor a demo of the game itself, has survived. Photos of the work in progress were covered by the usual news outlets by the end of summer 1992. The scant information given didn't say much about the story, except that the game would return to the Algol star system, would take place after the events of the second game, feature characters and references from all past games, and serve as a grand finale to the series. As the news of a new Phantasy Star started to leak out, Sega was there to explain the production process and what to expect from the game. In October 1992, Mega Drive Fan magazine held the first interview with the production staff of Phantasy Star 4. The article announced that Toru Yoshida, often referred to and credited as Yoshibon, would be the director and scenario writer of the game. He had worked on Phantasy Star 2 as a character designer and as a consultant on Phantasy Star 3, the only member of that team who was not a newcomer to the series. In addition, he designed all of the in-game artwork for the Phantasy Star 2 text adventure games for the Sega MegaNet online service. Along with Yoshibon, a core team would comprise a few familiar faces from the world of Phantasy Star. Rieko Kodama, aka the Great Phoenix Rie, served as project leader. Though technically the boss, she saw herself as an equal member of the team. She contributed to nearly every area of the game, thanks to everything requiring her final approval. On her own, she designed many of the field graphics and object designs. Akinori Nishiyama, also known as Locky P, wrote the script, as well as work on maps, objects, and mechanics of the game. He was part of the Phantasy Star 1 team. Izuho Numata, nee Takeuchi, the composer of Phantasy Star 3, would return for the soundtrack to 4. Known by the moniker Ippo, her compositions in and out of Phantasy Star were some of the best of the era. LC, otherwise known as Kazuyoshi Tsugawa, designed the visual event graphics, as well as other elements related to maps and battles. Yoshiaki Endo, under the alias Menmei, programmed the game. The interview was just the first in a longer series, titled the Phantasy Star 4 Club. As the calendar turned to 1993, more information followed. Yoshibon explained various concepts for the game and how the work in progress was moving along. Sega initially approved the game for release on the Mega CD. Phantasy Star 4 was intended to have animated scenes in between gameplay, complete with voiceovers, similar to other CD games of the time, such as Lunar and Cosmic Fantasy. Sega pulled back on the idea, reassigning the game to a 16 megabit cartridge. As work continued, Yoshibon petitioned for, and was granted, 24 megabits, an unheard of amount in 1993, but a memory size that would soon become standard as the 16-bit era matured. A 3D perspective for dungeons and caves, like those in Phantasy Star 1, was considered, only to be dropped in favor of a traditional top-down perspective, citing the lack of memory space as one reason for the change, while also never being able to make the mazes have the same jaw-dropping appeal they had in 1987. One funny revelation was that Yoshibon came up with most of his ideas for Phantasy Star 4 while sitting in the bathtub. His mind would wander on how to properly continue the story where the original 3 games left off. Phantasy Star 2 ended on a cliffhanger. Even in 3, the ultimate fate of Algol was not addressed. The focus quickly coalesced around Motavia and Azores after the Great Collapse. It was a blank canvas where the story could continue in any way the team saw fit. Characters, locations, and scenarios from all 3 past games would find their way into the story. The Zorians and Motavians would join the fight. Robots, too. The dialogue would be vast and varied, unlike any game before. Some of Yoshibon's conversations covered intricate connections to past games, as a reminder for what to look for when the new game is finally released, planned for the end of 1993. Fans also submitted artwork in anticipation of the game. In other Japanese magazines, Sega shared more screenshots and information via press releases. These were not as personable as the ones in Mega Drive Fan, but were informative. Many of these articles would make their way to the West. Until release day in Japan, not much could be known about the game, though these news flashes allowed English-speaking fans to learn a little something and dream of what might someday be. As 1993 came to a close, more information came to light. Sega abandoned the numbering scheme, adopting the subtitle Sennenki no Owari ni, in English, at the end of the millennium. The decision was made not to alienate newcomers who might feel put off by a game numbered 4 without having played the other 3. It all led to the big day, where the massive 24 megabit cartridge and finale to the Algol Star System saga would go on sale, to be enjoyed by an eager public.
光と闇の最後の戦いが今始まろうとしている。スペースバトルストーリー、ファンタジースター、The End of the Millennium。
If you have not played Phantasy Star 4 and don't wish to have the game spoiled, now would be a good time to pause the video. You should play through the game and then come back when you're finished. On Motavia, in the year AW 2284, bounty hunter Chaz Ashley has just been promoted from an apprentice to full partner by his mentor, Alice Brangwyn. The two are requested to investigate an increase of dangerous biomonsters in Piata, the town of learning. There, the pair meet Han Malay, a biology student at Piata Academy, who joins the team for a fee. During the mission, Han divulges his encounters with a mysterious figure named Zio, who appears to know the lost art of black magic. Further investigation of Zio's actions led to Alice crossing paths with an old friend, Rune Walsh. The group in turn befriends a native Motavian, Grizz, who is on a mission of his own against Zio to avenge his friends and family. The quest takes a shocking turn when the source of the biomonster outbreak comes from the ruins of an ancient civilization with advanced technology. Among the futuristic discoveries is Rika, a Newman. She looks and acts human, but also resembles an animal in certain ways. Rika tells Chaz and Alice that the biomonsters can be stopped if the ancient control systems are shut down. Along the way, Alice and the rest find the town of Nalia partially destroyed by something that fell from the sky. The object was part of a ship meant to escape Palma for Motavia 1,000 years ago, but got trapped in orbit and was forgotten over time. More of the lost history of Algol is learned here. At the central system, Nervous, Demi, an android, has been operating things here for centuries. Before the system can be shut down, Zio appears once more, revealing more about his mission to serve his god, the Dark Force. During the confrontation, Zio moves to kill Chaz with a wave of dark energy, only for Alice to jump in and protect him. Chaz and the rest escape. While searching for the right equipment to combat Zio's black magic, Alice succumbs to her injuries. Chaz is now left all alone in this world to carve out his own destiny. Chaz defeats Zio, avenging his partner. With the evil magician gone, the team moves to shut down the biomonster infestation, except that Demi informs everyone that the commands are coming from artificial satellites orbiting Motavia. Demi reveals a functioning spaceship that can take everyone there. It would be the first spaceflight in Algol for quite some time. On the satellite Zelan, Chaz meets Ren, another android who has been working here the entire time. Ren has lost access to the systems, which is now being run by the satellite Kuran, something that was never intended. Ren tags along to make things right. When the spaceship malfunctions, everyone winds up stranded on Dezoris. On the third planet, Chaz and the others meet Raja, a Dezorian high priest, as well as Kira Tierney, one of the many Espers who live in a secluded mansion to protect the spirit of Lutz, one of the 4 original heroes that fought the Dark Force 2,000 years ago. While on Dezoris, more about the past is revealed through discovery, storytelling, and confrontations with Lashik, now resurrected by the Dark Force. It is also revealed that there is an even greater evil behind the last 2,000 years, the profound darkness, as well as a 4th planet, Rykros, the orbit of which coincides with each return of the Dark Force. Everyone eventually returns to Motavia to discover the legendary weapons that can defeat the Dark Force and the profound darkness. A final battle that must be won to ensure a peaceful and prosperous future for what remains of the Algol star system. As for the gameplay of Phantasy Star 4, much of it has been improved over the last 3 games. The menus appear overtop any map, whether in a town, cave, or the overworld. Each character's level, hit points, technique points, and meseta totals are always shown. The player has a choice of using an item or casting a technique. Robots can't use techniques, but can use skills, which are essentially the same. You can also equip items or check each character's stats in more detail individually. These include how much experience is needed to level up. When equipping, the player is informed on how much improvement the new weapon or armor will bring. The talk function is something rather novel. When selected, some of the most recent dialogue is repeated, providing a hint to the player as to where to go next. Not only does this help novices, but for anyone who has ever gotten into a role-playing game for a while, then had to put it down, only to come back much later and forgot what to do next, it is a lifesaver. Lastly, macro attacks can be configured in the main menu. Macros are a preset range of moves that can be used in battle. These save time from having to enter different commands over and over again. There is no automatic attack like there was in Phantasy Star 2 and 3. Instead, a macro where everyone attacks can be performed. Macros can also be used to create combo attacks, where multiple characters perform moves at the same time, resulting in a stronger attack than each one could do separately. The battles are fast-moving, much faster than Phantasy Star 2, almost as fast as 3, but with a much better graphical presentation. The backgrounds are different for each area, and the character attacks are well-drawn and animated fluidly. Movement on screen is the fastest of any Phantasy Star game. The towns, caves, and other areas are also much larger, with much to explore. So while you may move fast, things still take the same amount of time to reach. Along the way, there are optional side quests that Chaz can take for some extra money. In every town, there are interesting people to meet. Some have heartfelt stories to tell, while others are just overly eccentric. Many inanimate objects also spark a conversation. The soundtrack has nearly 50 compositions that craft the perfect atmosphere for the quest. From the playful Tonoe de Pon in Grizz's hometown to the tense Machine Center and the dramatic At Her Last Breath, the music is just as important as any other aspect of the game. Once Millennium hit the streets of Japan, the game became a hot seller. Every major publication gave ample coverage, offering strategies and walkthroughs in multiple issues. Mega Drive Fan Magazine gave the new Phantasy Star a score of 24.5 out of 30. Beep Mega Drive gave a score of 8 out of 10, as well as letting Chaz and company share the cover with Sonic the Hedgehog. To promote Millennium, Sega held a contest where a special Mega Drive version of Phantasy Star 1 was given away to 1,000 lucky individuals. The contest drew such a large response, Sega put Phantasy Star 1 on sale properly in April 1994. Sega released a strategy guidebook for Millennium in January 1994. At 230 pages, the book is the ultimate companion, covering every town, dungeon, cave, enemy, item, boss, and plot twist. Accompanying the charts and maps are dozens of illustrations, all in full color. At the end of 1993, Sega was at about a 20% market share in Japan, behind the Super Famicom and PC Engine, though still at a respectable number. Millennium kept the Mega Drive going into 1994, where the game stood for sale side by side with heavy hitters like Final Fantasy VI, Mother 2, Ys 4, and dozens more. It's not a stretch to say that the golden era of 16-bit RPGs, where the genre finally moved beyond simple text menus, began to add cinematics, and reaching the maximum limits of the video game cartridge format, all began with Phantasy Star: The End of the Millennium on December 17, 1993. With Phantasy Star: The End of the Millennium now available, Japanese reviews and import copies began to enter the Western world. At the start of 1994, it wasn't even known if this new Phantasy Star game would leave Japan in the first place. It wasn't always the case, but sometimes Japanese games that were previewed in the West would wind up going unreleased, then disappearing from the headlines without explanation, to great disappointment from those reading at home. No announcement one way or the other came until June, when Sega held a public event known as Sega Gamers Day near the American home offices in California, a few days before the summer Consumer Electronics Show. The highlight of the event was the first announcement of the 32X add-on. Many other new games were announced, including Phantasy Star 4. The box art and English on-screen text were made publicly known. No release date was given, but as the year continued, more public demonstrations and announcements were made, including many localization changes. In Japanese, Alice was called Lila, Chaz was Rudy, Rika was Fall. The game would feature other linguistic changes, including the ever-troublesome handling of the names of the planets. The L and R in Palma and Dazorus were now switched to Parma and Dezolis. The end of the millennium would remain in the subtitle, but the American version would officially be known as Phantasy Star 4. With a strong lineup for Christmas 1994, which included Sonic and Knuckles, as well as many new 32X games, Sega decided to hold off on Phantasy Star 4 until after the new year. The game finally went on sale in February 1995. Due to the large memory size of the game and the translation work involved, Phantasy Star 4 carried a price tag of $99, equal to the price that it sold for in Japan. Alongside Virtua Racing, Phantasy Star 4 was the most expensive home video game of all time. The end of the Millennium was championed by the American gaming media upon release. In January 1995, Die Hard Game Fan gave Phantasy Star 4 that month's cover, and for several issues, the game was given a near step-by-step walkthrough, detailing the key elements of the early stages, explaining characters' origins, the effectiveness of items, and even poking a little fun at the less-than-perfect translation. In the April 1995 issue, the Viewpoint crew gave 3 scores over 90%. The game was still criticized for its translation, high price tag, and abandonment of the traditional Genesis hard plastic case. Despite this, Game Fan called Phantasy Star 4 undeniably one of the greatest RPGs ever, truly brilliant, and a must-own game. Electronic Gaming Monthly also gave a full review of Millennium in April 1995, with a review crew score of 31 out of 40. The length of the game was praised, as were the characters and range of abilities that kept things interesting, while a general dislike of RPGs by some kept the overall score down. Phantasy Star 4 also had its own English guidebook. While the one Sega included for free with PS2 is certainly the most remembered, books for 3 and 4 were published. Created by 2 writers from Sega Visions magazine, the guide offered a comprehensive walkthrough for the entire game, complete with maps and strategies for different enemies. Though printed in black and white, at 170 pages, it is pretty thorough and worth the $12.95 price tag. As American fans were enjoying Millennium, in February 1995, the game was left unreleased elsewhere. Sega initially had no plans to release PS4 worldwide, only to relent later on, releasing the game in the UK, Europe, and Australia in December 1995. Along the way, a version was released in South Korea. while in Brazil, the game was declined for a release by Tectoy. Reviews in the UK and Europe were similar to the US, with scores in the 80s and 90s in every publication. As Phantasy Star 4 was released after the 32-bit Sega Saturn in those regions, reviews often remarked that games like this prove there is still a lot of life left in 16-bit, and maybe it's best to keep the Mega Drive around for a while longer. Things don't last forever. In the spring of 1996, Sega restructured its product lines. The Sega CD and 32X were discontinued. Genesis and Mega Drive releases were reduced in number, and only the best-selling games remained in print. The Saturn was pushed to the front, with almost all new game development going there. Phantasy Star 4 was one of the many games pulled from production. Remaining copies were marked for clearance, often selling for as low as $25. By the end of 1996, Phantasy Star 4 was gone for good. It may have been a sad moment to know that our favorite series was officially over, and the entire 16-bit era closing down right alongside it. But at the same time, it was great to have that one final voyage, especially to those who picked up Phantasy Star 1 or 2 when Sega was seen as nothing special in the eyes of most gamers, not that many years before. To see the series live on to the final days of 16-bit is something to celebrate. Sure, Final Fantasy and many other series continue on, but at least we Phantasy Star fans can say this. We had all of our games released in English, on schedule, with the series never going off the rails and having a proper conclusion. It's something very few others can claim. That's something to feel good about, and wouldn't have any other way.
Sixteen-bit arcade graphics.
The 30th anniversary Genesis does.
16-bit action.
The 30th anniversary Genesis
Does.
Genesis does.
Get Golden Axe, Shinobi 3, Phantasy Star 4, Streets of Rage 2, Shining Force, and many more. Only with the Genesis Mini.
There are a lot of fun secrets hiding in Phantasy Star 4, as well as some strange and unusual discoveries. All of the quirks in the game are a huge part of what has made Phantasy Star 4 so endearing to fans for over 30 years. There are many connections to Sega's past hiding on Motavia and Azores. Some are very obvious, and others less so. Lashik, the Air Castle, Aero Prism, Eclipse Torch, Alshine, Shortcakes, and other key items from the past show up again in Phantasy Star 4. It's clear that some of these are the same items that were used millennia ago, while others might be coincidental. They are all a great reward for fans who played through the older games in the series, and will create some funny "what the" moments for anyone who played PS4 first and the older games later. Alice Brangwyn shares the name of the original hero, Alice Landale, though in Japanese she's known as Alisa. The spellings of the two names are different, and maybe that also accounts for the shift in spelling for the names of the 3 planets in Algol, if you'd like to imagine that everyone spoke the same language that has evolved over time. In the town of Termi, there is a statue of Alisa and Meow. Also for sale in that town is the Perori Mate, which has a special use later down the line. The name comes from the original Japanese name for the Die Mate, which in the English Phantasy Star 1 was a burger. The name is a pun on bland-tasting crackers sold in Japan called Calorie Mate. In Piata, the town of learning, there is a statue of Dr. Luvino, the man who built Alisa's spaceship. Chaz is unaware of his deeds and only refers to the Doctor as a person from 2,000 years ago. Then there are other references to Sega in general. In the town of Krupp, Saya's school has 3 books, Golden Axe Volume 3, A Day with Echo, and Run, Hedgehog, Run. In the town of Nalya, Chaz finds a Game Gear in someone's house. At the Hunters Guild in Aedo, the dance show plays the theme song from Fantasy Zone. The track is titled Pow Pow, a backward spelling of the hero of Fantasy Zone's name, Opa Opa. In Phantasy Star 2, the staff tried to connect the lineage of the heroes of the first and second games. Rolf was a descendant of Elisa Landale, the last one, in fact. Tyler was a descendant of Tyron, aka Odin, while Lutz was frozen alive, then revived. Meow's great-great-great-great-grandcats are also seen. In Phantasy Star 4, the same idea was applied to the 4 main heroes of the game, connecting each one to another game in the series. With so many characters, who exactly are the main 4? The opening of the game tells you. Rune, Ren, Rika, and Chaz. Rune is meant to be a descendant of Lutz, aka Noah in the original Phantasy Star. He's actually the 5th generation of the legendary Esper, as explained in the story. Rika is a descendant of Ne in Phantasy Star 2, being created in the same way and looking very similar. They are sisters after all. Ren is but one of many robots with the same design seen in Phantasy Star 3. In the timeline of the series, the events of 3 still won't happen for 1,000 years, but each escape ship was built with Ren robots to help the Palmanians on their journey. Perhaps before the Great Collapse, there was one in every home on Palma. Chaz is a direct descendant of Elisa Landale, something that is hinted at near the end of the game, but is never spelled out clearly. As Rolf was the final descendant 1,000 years ago, it means that he somehow returned to Motavia after the final battle and had a family. As for Meow, the Musk cats are still around and have learned how to open a bottle after 2,000 years of trying. There are several parts of the game that are not necessary, but can provide a bit of fun for going through the effort of discovering them. The Hunters Guild in Iedo offers 8 side quests that bring in some extra money, while taking a break from the battle against the Dark Force. These unlock after reaching certain parts of the game, and lock up again if you wait too long. So please visit the Hunters Guild often. Here are all 8, and how to complete them. Mission 1, the Ranch Owner. In Mile, a farmer has an infestation of sandworms. All you have to do is kill it, but you have to be leveled up enough first. Defeat the worm for 5,000 Meseta. Mission 2, Tinkerbell's Dog. In Iedo, a family has lost their beloved dog, Rocky. From people who know the fat little mutt, you'll learn he likes sweets. Buy a shortcake in Iedo and look for the dog in either Termi, Krupp, or Monsen. Give Rocky the cake and send him home for 2,000 Meseta. Mission 3, the Missing Student. A young lady from Piata, the town of learning, has quit school to join Zio's cult. The student is in Kaderi, near Zio's temple. She won't go with you until you give her a perorimate, which you can buy in Termi. Once she eats one, collect 3,000 Meseta. Mission 4, Fisher of Fear. Recent earthquakes have opened up the ground in Monsen. A young boy went exploring in one and got lost. Talk to a lady in the town about it and enter the crack. Defeat the Fact Ooze and bring the kid home for 5,000 Meseta. Mission 5, the Stain in Life. A family on Uso Island has had 2 daughters run away by building a raft and heading to Iedo. The girls are found in jail, and the only way to get them out and complete the mission is to bribe the police. Pay 50,000 Meseta to free the girls. Then collect your reward of 50,000 Meseta. Mission 6, the Dying Boy. A child in Termi thinks he's going to die. He's faking it, but to make him feel better, buy an Alice sword in the town and show off some moves. After the boy is cured, collect 10,000 Meseta. Mission 7, Man with a Twist. In Torinko, the fields are plagued with mutated birds who eat up everything in sight. Someone in town knows where the nest is. Go to a nearby cave where he directs you to battle the King Rappy, leader of the birds. The mission earns you 20,000 Meseta. As an aside, Rappies are a common enemy in Phantasy Star 3, so they must have somehow gotten on the ship. Mission 8, Silver Soldier. Robots are causing trouble in Zima. In town, you'll be directed to move northeast to Valhalla Fort. Find the computer and turn it off to collect 80,000 Meseta. Beyond that, there are several caves and dungeons that are not required to complete the game, but provide extra items, weapons, or techniques that could be useful. So don't pass up the Dazor's Climatrol, Anger Tower, Weapons Plant, or Crashed Ship, and keep your eye out for other places to explore. Another optional feature in Phantasy Star 4 are the combo attacks. In the manual, these are explained briefly, with hints on how to perform the first few. The manual states there are 15 in all, and it's up to you to discover them. So, what are the combo attacks? Number 1. Firestorm can be performed with Foy and Zan, or Foy and Hyun, or Philele and Zan. Number 2. Blizzard is a combination of Watt and Zan, or Watt and Hyun. Higher levels of Zan are also okay. Number 3. Silent Wave is a mix of Phonomezer and Air Slash. Number 4. Tri-Blaster is done with Watt, Foy, and Tsu. Number 5. Grand Cross is a combination of Crosscut and Efes. Number 6. Shooting Star requires Burst Rock and Nafoy. Number 7. Paladin Blow is a mix of Ray Blade and Astral. Number 8. Lethal Image is made by performing Death and Illusion. Number 9. Black Hole is a combination of Negatis and Nagra. Number 10. Circuit Breaker only works on machines. Use Highjammer and Tandle. Number 11. Holocaust does not work on machines and is done with Savol and DM. Number 12. Conduct Thunder is performed by using Watt and Tandle. Number 13. Purify Light is a mix of Holy Word and Efes. Number 14. Destruction, the most powerful combo attack, must be done in this order: Deban, Mejid, Legion, and Possibolt. Number 15. There is no number 15. Either Sega made a typo in the manual, or a 15th combo attack never made the final version of the game. In the US, Phantasy Star 4 was rated KA for kids to adults. This rating existed from the start of the ESRB and was replaced with E for Everyone in 1998. Later re-releases were rated E. Despite that, some scenes should have bumped things up to T. When Grizz confronts Zio for the first time, he says, "Damn you, Zio," an actual swear word. And Kaderi, a Lady of the Night, offers her services to Chaz. We know what those services are, but Chaz doesn't. Maybe that unclarity allowed this joke to slip by. There are also a few dirty old men here and there, if you look hard enough. Then there are
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by Factor. Private estate Bellagio.
Oh, here we go.
In August 1980, just a few months after the Guidestones went up, Howard Odom, a member of the Club of Rome, said, "It's necessary that the U.S. cut its population." Now, what I love about that story is people are still out there looking for Kenny. Every day, they go out hiking his trails, looking for him. And I think that's...
Human, did you start already?
Where have you been?
We've been going after the government too hard. I'm being pursued by a three-letter agency.
CIA?
No.
FBI?
No.
NSA?
No.
DHS?
No. AARP?
That's 4 letters, and they're
Three
not...
letters, 4 letters, what does it matter? They're trying to lure me into some experiment at Denny's.
Denny's?
It's a popular American restaurant chain with over 1,700 locations nationwide.
I know what Denny's is.
They're offering me free coffee refills and 20% off any Grand Slam breakfast. And this is another MK Ultra, I know it. I bet the CIA puts LSD in the JOE.
No, I'm sure they
Well, 20% off Denny's isn't gonna work on me. I wouldn't eat there for free.
It's just a membership offer. You are of a certain age, you know.
Ah, how dare you, sir? I'm still in my prime.
Yeah, that Botox isn't fooling anyone.
I get that for my migraines. Anyway, no time for chit-chat. I'm having the Beaver Brothers build me a panic room.
Whoa, hold on. Where are you going to build that?
In your wife's closet.
No, you better...
Have to. The AARP is coming, and I gotta be ready. If you come home and I'm watching Matlock, you'll know they got to me.
Sorry about that. That bit sounded a little punchier on paper. Anyway, I cover a lot of scary stories on the channel, so people ask me what scares me the most. And it's not nuclear war, it's not pandemic, it's not AI. What scares me the most is a solar event. Now, on this channel, the flood at the end of the Younger Dryas comes up a lot. That's where the polar ice caps melted and raised the sea level by a couple of 100 feet. We're talking tsunamis 1,000 feet high, moving at the speed of sound. So dramatic. The thing is, nobody really knows what caused that. The prevailing theory is that it was an impact. The big asteroid hit somewhere in North America, specifically Greenland, and that's what caused the ice sheets to melt. The thing is, there's no impact crater. Now, in the soil samples taken around that time, there is evidence of meteor activity, but it's not extreme. And there's no impact crater. When we look at the impact that killed the dinosaurs, that was, let me try and say it, Chicxulub. That impact was 65 million years ago and happened in the ocean, and we still see the crater. Younger Dryas is just 13,000 years ago. So if there's an impact, we should see a crater. We don't. So there are some people that believe that the ice sheets melted because of a massive solar event. And that's what scares me. We should all pay attention to solar weather. I don't know why more people don't. Maybe because once you start paying attention to it, it becomes kind of scary. So next episode is number 55, and it's about solar storms. Specifically about the Carrington, so hard to say, Carrington event. Happened about 100 years ago, 150 years ago. If something like that happened now, it could be the end of civilization. And I'm about to describe how it happens. On September 1st, 1859, a gold miner in Denver started his morning routine. He felt unusually tired, but shrugged it off as he prepared his coffee. He was used to waking up at sunrise, but noticed the sky was much brighter and redder than usual. Maybe a nearby fire, he wasn't sure. A few minutes later, his wife came downstairs and asked why he was up so early. Confused, he looked at the clock on the wall. It was 1 a.m. At the very same moment, the ship Southern Cross was sailing off the coast of South America when suddenly the seas turned violent. Waves lashed at the hull and hail pounded the deck. The water, reflecting the red sky above, seemed to turn to an ocean of blood. And that morning, an astronomer turned his telescope toward the sun and noticed something strange. What happened next was terrifying. Let's find out why. On September 1st, astronomer Richard Carrington was studying the sun when he noticed something unusual. At about 11 a.m., he was observing a huge sunspot, about 10 times the size of the Earth. Then suddenly a flash of intense white light burst out of the spot. What Carrington didn't realize was he had become the first eyewitness of a major coronal mass ejection, or CME, and it was headed straight for Earth. 17 hours later, the night sky in North America lit up like the day. Aurora borealis, typically seen near the North Pole, were visible in Miami and Cuba and as far south as Colombia. In the southern hemisphere, aurora australis were visible north of Brisbane. A few hours later, on September 2nd, the most powerful solar storm ever recorded crashed into the Earth's atmosphere. Our magnetic field was immediately overpowered and created chaos around the world. Telegraph lines were shorting out in Europe and North America. Equipment was throwing sparks and some burst into flames. Telegraph operators were burned or jolted with electric shocks. The word went out to telegraph operators to shut down the equipment. And they did, but even disconnected from their power supplies, everything still worked. In fact, telegraphs were more powerful than ever. Nobody had ever seen anything like this before. This became known as the Carrington event. And at the time, scientists thought this was a unique phenomenon.
Well, was it unique?
Nope. It's happened before, it's happened since, and it will happen again. And when it does, it could be the worst natural disaster in human history. In 1859, the connection between the sun and the Earth's magnetic field wasn't well understood. But at the same time Carrington saw the eruption, the Kew Observatory in London reported a large magnetic disturbance in the ionosphere. This allowed scientists to correctly link geomagnetic storms with solar activity like flares, solar wind, and coronal mass ejections. The sun's outer atmosphere, the corona, is structured by strong magnetic fields. Sometimes these fields become twisted, slowly building up energy like winding a spring. When these magnetic fields finally realign, that energy is released, which causes a solar flare or an ejection.
And they're not the same things?
Well, flares and CMEs can happen at the same time, but they aren't the same thing. A solar flare is basically a flash of light. They're relatively small and take place in the lower solar atmosphere. CMEs, on the other hand, are huge, sometimes bigger than the sun itself. A CME launches billions of tons of superheated plasma into space at several million miles per hour. CMEs happen all over the sun's surface, and most of the time they drift harmlessly into space. But sometimes CMEs come our way. Small ones we don't notice. On the ground, we're fine. Our atmosphere absorbs the cosmic radiation, and our magnetic field deflects the sun's plasma into the poles, which fall through the atmosphere, causing auroras. But just like the Earth's weather can vary from gentle to extreme, so does the weather on the sun. On average, CMEs happen 2 or 3 times a day. But once or twice every 100 years, the sun creates superstorms that hit the Earth. And when they do, the effects can range from inconvenient to catastrophic. There's evidence of solar superstorms going back a long time. Ice core samples show powerful solar storms hit the Earth several times between 7000 and 5000 BC. In 774 AD, an extreme solar storm called the Miyake event caused the largest rise in carbon-14 levels ever recorded. In 993 AD, a storm left evidence in tree trunks that archaeologists still use to date ancient wood materials. And this is one of the ways they confirm that the Norse arrived in North America 500 years before Columbus. 1052, 1279, more storms, more spikes in carbon. In 1582, 1730, and 1770, solar storms caused aurora to be seen all around the world, turning night into day. And there are dozens of reports like this throughout history. But in those reports, the solar storms are nothing more than oddities.
But didn't people freak out? Humans don't like change.
Well, sure, they frightened some people who thought the world was ending or the gods were angry, but the storms didn't cause any damage. But when the Carrington event happened in 1859, civilization was doing something new. We started using machines and electricity to operate them. And that's where the story goes from science lesson to Hollywood disaster movie. A solar storm can induce current in anything that conducts electricity. This can be the atmosphere, the ocean, and even certain types of rock, though conductivity is pretty low. But electrical wires? Solar storms love those. And modern civilization is absolutely covered by, and dependent on, millions of miles of wires that cover the Earth. A large enough solar storm can overload power grids, destroy transformers, and cause entire grids to fail. And this actually happened in 1989. The Earth was hit by a solar storm that disrupted radio signals across Russia.
Oh, the Russians had to be annoyed.
Oh, they were. At first, they thought American spies were jamming their signals. Then they noticed their satellites were unresponsive. Several satellites were drifting for hours. The Space Shuttle Discovery suffered sensor malfunctions. The Toronto Stock Exchange went down. And suddenly, millions of people in Quebec province were put in total blackout for 9 hours. In 2003, another storm put millions of people in the US and Canada in darkness for 12 hours. And the solar storms of 1989 and 2003 were a fraction of the strength of the Carrington event. So, what would happen if we were hit with a storm as strong as, or stronger than the Carrington event?
I'm guessing, not good.
Not good at all.
I ordered 200 hand-forged knives to my dorm room and built a Wix website to sell them. I'm Noah Rosen, founder and owner of Forged to Table Knives. Working my way up through the culinary industry, I knew a lot of people that would love an affordable handcrafted knife, so I saw the opportunity and built my own online empire. When someone first gets to forgetotable.com, we want them to have a curated shopping experience. With Wix, the detail and precision we put into crafting every knife went into the website in the same way. At Forge to Table, we're all chefs, so our blog is our creative outlet. With Wix, we're able to provide content and really good recipes that are really delicious while bringing customers into the products. Having a great platform means that we can serve 1,000 customers on the site every day, $1 million in revenue, and I'm just getting started.
Picture this. You're on a family vacation driving across the country to see,
Biggest ball of twine in Minnesota.
biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. Fine.
Minnesota. What? Might be Weird Al's best song.
Anyway, you've got the radio on, but it starts to get staticky. This is how it begins. In the ionosphere, shortwave radio has become overwhelmed with electromagnetic interference. Signals aren't getting through. No VHF, no UHF.
UHF might be Weird Al's best movie.
You're a little obsessed.
Yeah, I'm obsessed.
Ship-to-shore communication is disrupted. Planes using VLF signals are knocked off course. Air traffic control goes dark, and planes go blind. Now, it's a good thing you're on a driving vacation because airline passengers flying high in the atmosphere just received over a year's dose of radiation in an instant. Astronauts in space receive an even higher dose. Chances of developing cancer increase tenfold as the radiation has already begun unwinding strands of their DNA. This was just the initial burst, called the precursor stage. These high-energy particles move at the speed of light, so there's not much warning. But a coronal mass ejection moves a little more slowly. It hasn't hit yet. The worst is yet to come. Solar radiation continues to pummel the Earth. The atmosphere is saturated by high-energy particles. The Earth's magnetic field stretches as the plasma tries to strip it away. You look at your dashboard. Your GPS is acting weird. It can't orient itself. Then it loses signal altogether. But this is happening to every GPS system everywhere around the world, as radiation tears through thousands of satellites in orbit, shorting out their circuits and frying their electronics. This is more than just an inconvenient glitch affecting your vacation. Global supply chains begin to fail, and within hours, they will crumble completely. Military communication, which relies on microwaves, fails. Radar is disrupted. Weapon systems become useless. And then, it gets worse. By now, a few hours into the event, governments are aware of what's happening, but there's no way to communicate with the citizens. All telecommunications, including emergency services, go offline. Back in your car, you're on a call with a friend describing what's happening. Your friend also reports weird technical issues and mentions the stock market just went offline, but you're having trouble hearing them. Your phone keeps losing the call. And as people around the world all experience these strange events simultaneously, they saturate cell towers. But it doesn't matter. Nobody's phone can get a signal. Not even satellite phones work. After an hour or so, you start to get concerned and decide to pull off the highway. Maybe this is a good time to fill up your tank, grab lunch, and try to figure out what's happening. When you pull into the gas station, the line is already a quarter mile long. Gas pumps aren't working. There's chaos because credit cards won't work. ATMs are offline.
Well, can I use my Bitcoin?
Nope. Your crypto wallet is dark. Hard drives around the world have been wiped clean. Bye-bye blockchain. And during these last few hours of confusion, solar radiation has continued to build in the ionosphere. The Earth's magnetic field is stretched hundreds of thousands of miles into space. And when the last of the sun's plasma passes through the Earth, its magnetic field suddenly snaps back like a rubber band. And all of that energy built up in the ionosphere slams into the surface at once. Then things get really bad. Power stations around the world are overwhelmed. The failures cascade through every country on Earth, leaving entire continents in darkness. Power lines and transformers are set ablaze. Network cables both above the ground and deep under the ocean go down all at once. The entire internet goes dark. Now, back at the gas station, someone from your family complains that the restroom water isn't working. Turns out water isn't running anywhere. Pumping stations and water treatment centers are offline. You hear a loud crash behind you. There's a 6-car collision where a traffic light stopped working. Looking down the street, you see that no traffic lights are working anywhere. Not here, not back at home, not anywhere. There's no power, no water, no fuel. And this is just the first few hours. From here, things get even worse.
Worse?
Far worse. There have been a number of studies outlining solar storm worst-case scenarios, and each study is scarier than the next. If the Carrington event, or worse, something stronger, happened now, it would take months or even years to get back to normal. It's been estimated that some power grids could take up to 10 years to repair. You could prioritize water facilities, hospitals, and emergency services, but you'd still have millions of people without power for months. Planes would have to be grounded. Trains, too, would have to wait. Some cars would be okay, but not all of them. Electric cars are great, but without charging stations, you'll miss that old gas guzzler. Still, there would be no traffic control system. Now, this might be okay in rural areas, but in a big city, it's a disaster. One study warned about how the destruction of the supply chain and lack of refrigeration would cause worldwide food riots. No heat, no air conditioning, no sewage disposal. Banking transactions require power, network access, and satellite uplink. Without these, the global financial system would be in ruins. Right now, there are over 19,000 satellites orbiting the Earth, and many of those would be adrift. Solar storms cause what's known as satellite drag, and this is where the Earth's atmosphere expands and starts tugging on low-orbiting objects. If we can't restore power to those, they would start falling back down to the Earth one by one. But a strong enough storm would burn out a satellite's circuit boards, so there's no way to save it. According to another study, a severe enough solar storm would cause a complete breakdown of society. Most governments would have to impose martial law immediately, and many governments would simply collapse. Remember those warnings of 2012?
Oh, yeah, the world was supposed to end.
Well, in July, it almost did. In July 2012, the largest CME in a century missed the Earth by 9 days. That was the luckiest thing to happen to our species in hundreds of years. If that solar storm hit us, a quarter of the Earth's population could have been without power for weeks. 160 million Americans would be in the dark for months. We would still be recovering from the aftermath today. Damage in the US alone would have cost trillions of dollars. And that storm happened in the middle of summer. How many thousands of people would die around the world without heat for an entire winter? 9 days. That's all that stood between us and an instant 200-year thrust backward in technology that would have changed all of our lives.
Are we at the good news part of the video yet? This is getting stressful.
Well, NASA's Solar Terrestrial Relations Observatory spacecraft, called STEREO, launched in 2006, and it can spot a CME almost immediately.
Oh, good. Whew.
But
Oh, no.
the STEREO spacecraft can't determine the CME's magnetic field. Turns out that's a key piece of data. If the CME's magnetic field is aligned with the Earth's, it just bounces off. Magnets repel when their poles are aligned. But you've heard the expression, opposites attract. If the magnetic fields of the CME and the Earth are not aligned, the CME strips away our protection, which means disaster. Now, the Advanced Composition Explorer sits about 900,000 miles from the Earth, and this satellite can detect the CME's magnetic field.
Which gives us how much time to prepare?
About half an hour.
A half hour, that's it?
That's it. That means we have 30 minutes for planes to be grounded, for satellites to be put into safe mode, and grids to be powered down. Everyone has to go dark, and then we just wait it out and hope for the best. Now, on average, there's a 4% chance of a severe solar storm in any given year, and a 0.7% chance of a Carrington-level event. But every 11 years, the sun enters a period of peak activity called a solar maximum. then the odds get much worse.
Well, when is the next solar maximum?
Well, we're currently in solar cycle 25, which began in 2019 and is expected to peak in 2025. During the solar maximum, chances of a severe solar storm go to 28%, and chance of a Carrington superstorm go to 4%.
Every year?
Every year, a new roll of the dice. Now, despite the blackouts and chaos solar storms have caused in recent years, a 4% chance is just not scary enough for governments to take the necessary action. We need more resources diverted to research, more satellites, and a full overhaul of our power infrastructure. And those resources aren't coming anytime soon.
Hey, didn't we just pass a big infrastructure bill? Yeah, I realized that was a stupid question as I was asking it. We can't count on the government.
We absolutely cannot. Instead, we have to rely on ourselves and our local communities, just like we do before a hurricane or a tornado or an earthquake. Make sure your family has a readiness plan. Maintain a supply of food and water. You need thermal blankets, camp stoves, propane heaters in case the heat goes out. You need hygiene supplies, first aid kits, and a hand crank radio. Keep all these on hand all the time, just in case.
So you're saying become a prepper?
Well, if that's what you want to call it. But being overprepared is better than not being prepared at all, because it's just a matter of time before the lights go out. And when they do, there is no cavalry coming. In the end, the only one looking out for you and your family is you. You can see why solar weather scares me. Next up is a controversial topic. It's episode 97 about the Georgia Guidestones. Looking at my notes. Remember, this is not a professional operation. So the Guidestones. They were 6 stones, granite slabs with 10 messages in 8 languages, or 8 messages in 10 languages. It's one of those. There were messages on them. And I'm using the past tense because a little over a year ago, someone destroyed the Georgia Guidestones. They were in the hills of Georgia. It's on camera. The person threw a bomb at the Guidestones and destroyed them. And what's controversial about that is, to some people, the person who did this is a terrorist. To others, he's a hero. Now, I have my own opinion on which one he is, and now you'll have to decide for yourself. On July 6, 2022, a bomb detonated on a 5-acre plot of farmland in Elberton, Georgia. The explosion destroyed a large monument that stood on the property for over 40 years. Known as the Georgia Guidestones, it was 4 monolithic slabs of granite weighing over 230,000 pounds that contained a set of rules for a more peaceful and orderly society. The identity of the builder was a mystery for 40 years, but today I'll tell you who he was. But why did he want to keep his identity a secret? Probably for the same reason the Georgia Guidestones were destroyed. Because, according to the Guidestones, the way to a perfect society is through a one-world government, genetic and racial purity, and massive global depopulation. In other words, a new world order. In June 1979, a well-dressed man using the pseudonym Robert C. Christian approached Joe Finley, president of Elberton Granite Finishing Company. R.C. Christian wanted to build a monument to rival the magnitude and awe of Stonehenge. R.C. Christian had recently visited Stonehenge and was impressed, though he felt it was missing something, a message. But what kind of message? The reason R.C. Christian used that name is that he was a Christian. There's no more famous Christian message than the 10 Commandments. And religious or not, the 10 Commandments have rules that all of us should follow. Don't lie, don't steal, don't hurt anybody. But those are rules for an individual. R.C. Christian was thinking bigger.
What, bigger than the word of God given to Moses from the top of a mountain?
Yep.
Oy vey, the ego in this guy.
R.C. Christian said he represented a small group of loyal Americans who had spent the past 20 years planning an unusually large and complex monument. He brought with him a scale model with some very detailed specifications. The structure would stand 16 feet tall and consist of 4 stones arranged in the shape of a cross, capped with a central stone. The monument would need to display its message in the 8 most spoken languages in the world: English, Spanish, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, Hindi, and Swahili. It would also show the message in 4 dead languages: Babylonian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Sanskrit, and classical Greek. Joe Fenley wasn't taking any of this seriously, but when R.C. Christian began to describe the monument, Fenley stopped what he was doing. Not only was this out-of-towner asking for stones larger than any Fenley had ever quarried, he wanted them cut, polished, and arranged as an enormous astronomical instrument.
The 4 standing stones should outline the migration of the moon over a year. A small viewing hole in the middle support stone will need to always show the North Star. A slot at the top of the middle support stone should align with a winter and summer solstice's rising sun and indicate noon at the equinoxes. A hole should be drilled through the capstone that focuses the sun on the center column at noon to indicate the day of the year.
R.C. Christian had one final request that caused a few people to question the purpose of the Georgia Guidestone project. The stone should be made to withstand the end of the world. R.C. Christian now had Joe Fenley's full attention. Fenley's Granite Company mostly dealt in wholesale orders for statues, monuments, and tombstone retailers. He had never had a request like this. Fenley's first thought was, this guy's crazy, how can I get him out of here? Fenley tried to discourage the stranger by quoting him a price much higher than any job he'd ever worked on. He said the job would need heavy equipment, special tools, and expensive consultants. R.C. Christian just nodded and asked how long. Fenley wasn't sure how long it would take, 6 months, maybe more. But he wouldn't even consider the job unless he knew R.C. Christian had the money. Christian asked if there was a trustworthy banker in town.
Well, there's a problem. There's no such thing as a trustworthy banker.
Well, that's a good point. But still, Fenley sent R.C. Christian to the Granite City Bank and told him to ask for the bank president, Wyatt Martin. At the bank, Martin and Christian came to an agreement. Martin would help set up the bank account where funds could be transferred to pay for the Guidestones, but the account couldn't be set up under a false name. R.C. Christian understood and agreed to give Martin his real name, but only if he promised to never tell anyone who he really was or who he represented.
No, but we know, right?
We do. We're getting there.
Fine, but don't take too long. The suspense is giving me agita.
Wyatt Martin agreed and would be the only man to ever know R.C. Christian's true identity. Despite being hounded for years about this, Martin kept his word to his dying day. So R.C. Christian transferred the funds, purchased 5 acres of land in Elbert County, Georgia, and construction finally began. And just like that, R.C. Christian was gone, and nobody would ever see him again. The 5-acre plot of pasture was the highest point in Elbert County and visible from all directions, the ideal location. The Georgia Guidestones were erected and revealed to the public on March 22, 1980, the vernal equinox. What?
It was erected.
Don't be a child.
Oh, so in 1980, they revealed their erection to the public?
Please don't.
Okay. You know I couldn't let that go. Go ahead, I'll behave.
A few hundred people, local media, and even Elberton's congressman came out for the unveiling. Each of the outer slabs was 16 feet high, 6 feet wide, and 19 inches thick. The capstone measured almost 10 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 19 inches thick. Including the foundation stones, the monument's total weight was almost 240,000 pounds.
Wow, that is a big erection. What, it is?
It is, but would you stop with
and hot as a rock.
Enough!
I'm choking. I gotta pee. Whew. Okay, go ahead.
Over the years, thousands of visitors from all over the world would come to see the Georgia Guidestones. But what was so special about the stones? It was more than just an impressively large granite construction. It was the new 10 Commandments, sandblasted in 4-inch high letters that R.C. Christian left to benefit humanity.
Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Unite humanity with a living new language. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Balance personal rights with social duties. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature.
At first glance, some of these commandments seem fairly innocent and maybe even cliche. But when you take a closer look, the guides are unsettling. Some have claimed that the Georgia Guidestones are instructions for a new world order, an open call for eugenics, genocide, and a one-world government. But we're told this is all conspiracy theory, that there's no evidence to support these claims.
But there's evidence?
Oh yeah, plenty of it. At first glance, the 10 rules on the Georgia Guidestone sounded like a cheesy New Age bumper sticker, but if you read them carefully, they're disturbing. Let's start with the first one. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. The current population is just under 8 billion people. To achieve the Guidestone's ideal population means that roughly 94% of people on Earth would need to be eradicated. And there are many people and think tanks that support this. On this channel, we've covered the Club of Rome, that defines itself as a nonprofit, informal organization of intellectuals and business leaders whose goal is a critical discussion of pressing global issues. Fine. But what the Club of Rome doesn't advertise so openly is that it was created in 1968 by the Morgenthau Group during a secret meeting at Rockefeller's private estate Bellagio.
Oh, here we go.
In August 1980, just a few months after the Guidestones went up, Howard Odom, a member of the Club of Rome, said, "It's necessary that the US cut its population by 2/3 within the next 50 years. He didn't mention how this should be accomplished. But there are theories.
Ooh, I love theories.
I know you do.
But it does mean if you want the same standard of living, we're going to have to cut our population in the U.S., for example, certainly to 1/4. But we have so many wasteful things, that won't be hard.
You say it won't be hard to cut the population by 1/4?
It just takes one generation to get a population down if nobody bred for one generation.
You've probably heard of the Bilderberg Group. It was formed in 1954 as a way to prevent another world war. That's what they say publicly. So why are Bilderberg meetings so secret? Secrecy has created all kinds of conspiracy theories.
I love theories.
I know you do. One of these is that the Bilderberg Group believes that the current population growth is not sustainable. Allegedly, one way the Bilderberg Group would try to reduce human population is by causing pandemics.
Oh no.
The theory also says the Bilderberg Group will keep their true plan secret by consolidating all media to a handful of mega companies, and then use governments to work with these media companies on censoring any ideas that go against the group's wishes.
Ooh, that's not a theory, that's true.
Well, of course it's true. Just look at Twitter. Both Trump and Biden aggressively pressured Twitter into censoring any information that went against their agendas. But whether the Bilderberg Group is behind this or not is unknown.
Yeah, unknown only if you're a sheep.
And guess who writes the foreign policy for the Bilderberg Group?
The Club of Rome?
The Club of Rome. Now, it's been alleged that the Club of Rome supports massive depopulation using any means necessary.
Well, didn't we fight World War II over these ideas?
Well, funny you should mention that. The founder of the Bilderberg Group was Prince Bernhard. At the beginning of World War II, he was a Nazi SS officer.
Of course he was.
Now, to be fair, after Germany conquered France, Prince Bernhard switched sides and fought for the Allies.
Oh, so that makes him okay?
Hey, I'm just giving both sides of his story. But many people say that all of this is nothing but conspiracy theory, that the Georgia Guidestones don't want to reduce the current population, but instead are instructions for how to rebuild society after a cataclysmic world event. Okay, let's say that's true. How should the remaining survivors maintain control of the population? And who decides? The second Guidestone rule addresses this. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. R.C. Christian wrote a book entitled Common Sense Renewed, which he sent to each member of Congress in 1986. Among a myriad of statements, Christian wrote,
"It is vitally important that each national government have a considered population policy. The need is urgent and should take precedence over other problems.
As a therapist myself, I know how important it is to be able to have someone that you can talk to about your problems, to bounce ideas off of, process your traumas and your stressors, especially when life is getting out of hand. And although everyone should have a therapist like that they can talk to, sometimes it's difficult to find the right person who's the right fit for you and your needs. Thankfully, BetterHelp has an online quiz and tool that streamlines the entire process for you to better help you find a therapist that's going to meet your needs by asking you what your preferences are, what your experiences are, what kind of therapy style you're looking for, and that way it can match you up with the best therapist specifically for you. And thanks to BetterHelp's online platform, actually communicating with your therapist, whether it be via messaging, phone call, video chat, is incredibly easy. You can communicate with your therapist at times that are the most convenient for you so that you can have flexibility to communicate with them not only anytime, but also anywhere. Whether that be at home, at a park, in your car, whatever's most convenient for you, things are flexible so you can get the help you need when you need it. So if you feel like you're on hard times, you can try out BetterHelp for yourself.
Dying like the beast. Pre-order now. Even those of national defense.
Okay, so he wants the government in charge. So what kind of people should the government allow to have children?
Responsible parenting will consider both genetic and environmental factors. We must seek to produce healthy children and then to mold their characters and to develop their potentials as socially worthwhile adults who will in turn carry the process indefinitely into the future. We have a grave duty to use all available knowledge in perfecting the forces which guide our procreation. It is within our power to leave behind us a new generation of humanity, slightly superior to our own in intellectual, physical, and social capabilities.
Yeesh, this sounds a lot like China.
Oh yeah, he's a fan of punishing people who want big families.
A few generations of single-child families will make possible dramatic improvements. Irresponsible childbearing must be discouraged by legal and social pressures.
Allowing only worthy people to reproduce to create a generation of genetically superior children? That's called eugenics.
Oh, so that's frowned upon, eh?
It is. It's what the Nazis did, or tried to do. It's also a war crime, but maybe not a crime at all in the New World Order. The Rockefeller that helped create the Club of Rome is the same guy who founded the Population Council in 1954. The Population Council supported, and still supports, research in birth control and early birth termination, specifically in those people with undesirable genetics. How do we know? Rockefeller said so.
Modern civilization had reduced the operation of natural selection by saving more weak lives and enabling them to reproduce, resulting in a downward trend in genetic quality. An organization needed to be created that would be devoted to the reduction of fertility of weaker individuals with undesirable genetics.
One of the members of the Population Council, as recently as 2020, has been accused of supporting forced sterilization. The council is still active today. It operates its programs in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. Notice that North America and Europe are not on that list. Now, maybe it's just a coincidence, but the council is focused on countries that are primarily non-white. The Population Council takes in millions upon millions of dollars every year. And the biggest contributor? The United States government.
Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident.
Guide number 1 was population control. Guide number 2 was breeding a superior society through eugenics. Guide numbers 3 and 5 are just as chilling.
Unite humanity with a living new language. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court.
Uniting the world under a new single language and rectifying all disagreements in a world court, these are key to creating the New World Order. And local ministers pointed out that the Book of Revelations warned of a common tongue and a one-world government as the accomplishments of the Antichrist. And guide number 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. This also upset Christians who believe in faith above all. After all, it's the first commandment. God said, "You shall have no other gods before me." God wasn't down with tempered reason. These seemingly anti-faith messages made the Georgia Guidestones a location for alleged satanic worship, witchcraft, and pagan rituals. Elberton locals have reported seeing lights near the Guidestones. They've heard chanting. They found melted candles on the capstone. Now, no humans were sacrificed there, but I can't say the same for a few chickens who had a less than amazing visit to the Georgia Guidestones. Now, other theories suggest that the stones were built on native Hopi lands, and that the Hopi have a prophecy regarding the ushering in of a new world. Other theories say that the stones are set on ley lines along with other icons, like the Great Pyramids, Great Wall of China, and Stonehenge. And that's not even mentioning the proposed connections to the Order of the Rosy Cross, the Rosicrucians, who deserve their own episode. But the biggest mystery of all was, who funded this project? Well, it would take 35 years, but we finally have our answer.
The planet can support something like 1 billion people. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. I mean, we could even have 8 or 9 billion probably if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. Unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. But if you had a smart dictatorship and a low standard of living, you can have but we want to have freedom and we want to have a high sentence, so we're going to have 1 billion people. And we're now at 7, so we have to get back down. I hope that this can be slow, relatively slow, and that it can be done in a way which is relatively equal, so that people share the experience and you don't have a few rich, trying to force everybody else to deal with it. So those are my hopes. I mean, these are pretty pessimistic hopes, but I mean, that's what lies ahead.
Over the years, internet detectives have had many theories about the true identity of R.C. Christian. Businessman and founder of CNN, Ted Turner, was a leading candidate. He had the money, his foundation was created to protect the environment, and he specifically said that the greatest threat to civilization is overpopulation. But Ted Turner can't be R.C. Christian.
Why not?
Because Ted Turner is still alive.
Oh, this Christian guy's dead?
Yep. Wyatt Martin, the bank owner who knew Christian's true identity, kept Christian's identity a secret. Christian and Martin exchanged letters at least twice a year until Christian's death. The letters were never sent from the same place, nor were the funds transferred from the same place twice. Martin passed away in December 2021, but he did drop some clues along the way, whether he meant to or not. Martin confirmed that Christian died after the year 2000. He mentioned that Christian had a daughter, and that he was in basic training in Georgia before being deployed in World War II. Martin said that Christian was from the Midwest, and at some point he worked in construction.
Is that enough?
Almost. What sealed the deal was something that took place in 2005, when a documentary crew was filming Dark Clouds over Elberton. Wyatt Martin had recently suffered a stroke and was in pretty bad health. The film crew pressured him to show them the letters that he received from R.C. Christian over the years. Martin was reluctant, but eventually agreed, though he was careful to hide his postmarks on the envelopes when he was showing them to the camera. But the cameraman was able to grab a close-up shot of an envelope in the box which had a return address.
Kind of a dick move to take advantage of the old time, huh?
I agree, but even though we may not like the way we came about this information, it doesn't change the fact that we have it. So using this information, people on the internet did what they do best.
Oh, leave nasty comments on videos about how your content sucks?
No, they tracked down the address.
Oh.
The letters came from Dr. Herbert Hinsey Kirsten, a surgeon from Fort Dodge, Iowa. Kirsten is an old German form of the name Christian.
He died after 2000, like the old timers said?
Kirsten died in 2005.
Yahtzee!
Now, according to Kirsten's obituary, he served in World War II. He was a conservationist who loved nature and trees. He was a naturalist who was very involved in environmental and world population issues.
Bingo, this is the guy!
Kirsten also worked in construction when he was younger, and he had 2 sons and 2 daughters.
Wait. The guy who wants to limit people to one rugrat had 4 of them?
Yep.
Rules for thee, but not for me, huh? You sure this guy wasn't in Congress?
Well, I'm sure, but he did have a couple of famous friends. One of them was William Shockley. Shockley was a physicist and inventor. He actually won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1956.
Yeah, sounds like a good guy.
Well, he was also known for being a racist who supported eugenics.
Oh, I take back what I said.
Now, Shockley argued that less intelligent people were having too many children and reducing the average intelligence of the population. He also believed some races were more intelligent than others. Clearly, Dr. Kirsten, aka R.C. Christian, shared similar views. Though the Georgia Guidestones aren't specifically racist, we know that Dr. Kirsten was a supporter of David Duke, former Grand Wizard of the KKK.
Oof, maybe it's not so bad that somebody blew these things up, huh?
Well, destruction of the Guidestones is the final piece of the story. Or is it? On July 6, 2022, just after 4 a.m., CCTV picked up an individual running to the stones carrying something. Seconds later, there's an explosion, and one of the 4 monoliths is destroyed. Less than a minute later, a car is captured on camera leaving the scene. What's strange is, within hours, heavy equipment was brought in to clean up the site. Shouldn't this have been a crime scene for longer than a few hours? ATF was on the scene almost immediately. Weren't they curious about what kind of explosive was used? What components it was made of? What kind of trigger device was employed? Modern forensics can give us all kinds of information, but all the evidence was quickly removed. The Guidestones were in a remote location. There's only one road in or out. There's no footage of this vehicle once it leaves the area. It's the middle of the night in northern Georgia. It would be one of the only cars on the road, but we don't have any new information.
Government was in on it?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there are questions that can now never be answered because the site, along with any evidence, was cleaned up almost immediately. It's very possible this was carried out by someone who is very anti-government, or maybe someone who is just anti-hypocrisy. All these people that want us to live by the one-child policy seem to have plenty of children. Rockefeller had 6 kids. William Shockley had 3. R.C. Christian, aka Dr. Kirsten, had 4, but the rest of us are only allowed to have 1 child, and only if we're genetically fit. Who decides who's genetically fit? Well, they do. They want to limit the population of the Earth without acknowledging that it was the rapid growth and advancement of the human race that allowed them to amass ridiculous wealth. Now that they have theirs, they want to limit what we can have. These same people are the ones who scream about climate change, fossil fuels, pollution.
If you want to build an app and have no idea how to code or where to start, check out Base 44. I built this daily habit tracker that helps users log small wins, track their mood, reflect on past entries, and see how far they've come. It's fully functional, and I didn't write a single line of code. You start by describing your idea, what you want it to do, the features, the look and feel. Now watch Base do its magic, designing the interface, building the database, wiring the logic. It's like asking a team of engineers, designers, and product managers to create your vision instantly. Once you have your first version, you just keep going. I add dark mode, polish the transitions, and make sure it works smoothly across devices. The best part? I can just stay in flow. No blockers, no switching tools, just building. So start with your idea. Base 44 does the rest.
They want to decide who can own what kinds of vehicles and how much energy you can use to warm your house in the winter. But how did J.D. Rockefeller make his money? Oil. Aurelio Pache, who founded the Club of Rome, he made his fortune working for Fiat, a huge company that makes cars, trains, planes, tractors, and military equipment. When they were making their families rich and powerful, the climate wasn't as big a concern, but now it is. All the problems facing our planet can be solved like they've always been solved, through our collective innovation and cooperation. All of us. But the elites don't want cooperation. They want control. They don't see any problem with this. They have superior genetics. They don't believe we're intelligent enough to make these decisions for ourselves, so they'll make those decisions for us. It's very possible, and maybe even likely, that whoever destroyed the Georgia Guidestones was aware of this hypocrisy. Now look, I don't condone the destruction of property. I know why some monuments and statues are offensive to some people, but those people don't have the right to just decide on their own to tear them down. People should vote on what statues go up and what monuments come down. Anything else is vandalism and vigilantism. I don't like the fact that someone took the law into their own hands and destroyed the Georgia Guidestones. Now, I hope he's found and sent to prison for what he's done. But now that they're gone, I say good riddance. So, what do you think? Terrorist? Hero? Terrorist?
Hero! That was a monument to the New World Order.
Well, that's one of the theories, and there's plenty of evidence to support that. What is that racket?
Hey, can you boys take a break? I'm doing my showbiz thing over here. Sorry. The panic room is really coming along.
I told you to stay out of my wife's closet.
You were serious? I thought you were kidding.
No, I wasn't kidding. Where did you put all her stuff?
Relax, there's plenty of room in the bunker.
We don't have a bunker.
Not yet, we don't. The bunker is phase 2.
Whoa. You can't build that under my house.
I know that, you moron. The beavers got the tunnel dug, but they hit a water pipe, so we gotta pump out the water. Thank goodness your wife has all these life vests in here.
She doesn't have any life vests in there.
Sure she does. They're puffy leather things that all say LV all over them. They're very buoyant.
Those are not life vests. She is gonna kill me.
All right, let me go. The boys gotta break through the cement foundation, so I gotta keep them moving. When your beaver's in the mood for a jackhammer, you gotta take advantage.
Well, next up is episode 113, crop circles. This one was highly requested, and I refused to do it for like a year because I was convinced that crop circles were just made by guys with boards and rope. That there was nothing more to it than that. It's too obvious. But so many people wanted my take on it. So I started doing research, and I went from skeptic to believer. I'm convinced that 99.9% of crop circles are fake, but there's 0.1% that can't be debunked. They're scientifically proven to be something very, very strange. This is a long episode, but it's a fun one, so settle in. In 1974, a group of scientists beamed a message into space. The message, meant to be received by an intelligent alien species, described life on Earth. Written in simple binary code and using the most powerful radio telescope on the planet, the message was broadcast to a dense cluster of stars in the constellation of Hercules. This exercise was just ceremonial, a way to demonstrate new technology in radio astronomy. Nobody was really expected to receive it, and even if they did, it wouldn't be anytime soon. The nearest star in the direction of the broadcast is 25,000 light years away. So the telescope was tuned to 2380 megahertz, aimed at Hercules, and fired up. The scientists congratulated each other, shook hands, and went on with their lives. But 27 years later, something very unexpected happened with that message beamed into deep space. Someone wrote back. One morning in 1966, George Pedley was working his farm in Tully, Queensland, Australia, when he heard a strange buzzing sound. He climbed down from his tractor and started walking in the direction of the sound. Then he saw a circular craft slowly rise above a section of swampland not 50 feet from where he was standing. The craft hovered for a few seconds, shot straight up into the sky, and disappeared. When George went to investigate, he found a large circle of reeds had been pulled from the swamp and flattened into a disc. The circle was 30 feet across, 2 feet thick, and arranged in a clockwise swirl. Because of the swirl and the thickness of the reeds, locals call the formation a UFO nest. But what this actually was a crop circle. Since the 1960s, thousands of crop circles or crop formations have been found. They've been seen on every continent in almost every country on Earth. But the epicenter for crop formations is Wiltshire in the southwest of England. Crop formations range from the very simple to the very complex. Formations can be circles, stars, and other geometric shapes, but some are pictograms, though nobody knows for sure what they mean. Though every formation is different, they have a few things in common. Recognizable patterns that are created very quickly, usually at night. The creation of these patterns is always associated with some kind of light, either a beam of light or an orb of light.
Whatever that is, that's moving on its own. Oh my God.
Though crop formations seem like a new phenomenon, there's evidence they've been appearing for a long time. In the 9th century, Abegard, the Bishop of Lyon in France, wrote about parishioners who were possibly engaged in devil worship or paganism. They were collecting seeds out of flattened circles in the fields and using them for fertility rituals. In 1686, Robert Plot, a professor at Oxford, wrote about crop circles. He even drew pictures of a couple that appeared near his home. He said they were formed by a flash of light. And once they were formed, animals wouldn't go near them. Around the same time, a pamphlet was released called The Mowing Devil. It describes how a farmer woke to see a bright light in his field that he thought was fire. When he went to investigate, he found a crop circle. It's called the Mowing Devil because the farmer said the circle was so neatly mowed that it could not have been done by a mortal man. John Leland served as librarian to Henry VIII. He wrote about patterns appearing in grass overnight. In 1937, a British science journal reported circles found in a field of barley and even included one of the first photos taken of a crop circle. In 1945, this photo was taken by a balloonist working for the RAF Parachute Training School. In 1952, the U.S. Air Force investigated circles found in Kansas. In 1963, Sir Patrick Moore, an astronomer writing for the New Scientist journal, investigated a formation in Charlton.
In the wheat fields were features taking the form of circular or elliptical areas in which the wheat had been flattened. One very well defined was an oval, 15 yards long by 4.5 broad. There was evidence of spiral flattening, and in one case there was a circular area in the center in which the wheat had not been flattened.
One of the texts discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls is the Book of Enoch. Enoch talks about lightning leaving marks on the earth. So these formations have been seen since the beginning of recorded history. Even though thousands of circles have been found, and many people claim to witness them forming, no one had ever caught it on camera until 1996. John Whaley was camping out on a hill in Wiltshire called Oliver's Castle, named for a fort that was built there many years ago. Around 3 a.m., something caught his eye. He grabbed his video camera and captured footage of several glowing orbs hovering over a field. Then, like magic,
Whoa!
here's the formation from the air. Nobody can agree on what crop circles mean, though most people believe they're messages. Now, this is frustrating to many researchers. They say, whoever's making these, why don't they just speak English? Well, in 2001, they did.
Okay, if there's one AI site builder you need to meet, it's this dope tech from Wix. Now, this whole flow is a conversation, so your words actually build your website. I'm going for a store. And after a free-flowing conversation, I get this detailed site brief. And just like that, my first draft is ready. Now that's dope. Next, you can really get in there and style it your way. Here's the fun part. You can regenerate this whole thing over and over. Or you can tweak something specific, like your layout. Let me describe what I had in mind. Yeah, that's fire. If there was ever a time to speak life into your dreams, it's right now using the Wix AI website builder.
I need allies. I want you to join me.
I see.
Hear the primal cries of nature. Chains to ash and quartered to dust.
Heaven's wrath will fall heavy on your heads. I walk the fivefold path. Out of my way.
This might hurt. Our story begins here and now. Borders will crumble, and worlds will collide. Shadowverse, worlds beyond.
Intelligently controlled. You see, the object came down and it stopped for a long.
nothing random about it. There's no movement in prevailing wind.
I can't think what that is. The definitive piece of evidence.
In 1974, the Arecibo message was sent from Earth to a cluster of stars in the Hercules constellation. It's called the Arecibo message because that was the name of the giant radio telescope used to transmit it. The team that created the message was led by Dr. Frank Drake, with assistance from Carl Sagan. The message was 1,679 binary digits that could be converted to an image, designed to convey information about civilization on Earth. It starts with a representation of the numbers 1 through 10. This provides a key to the rest of the message. Next, atomic numbers of hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus, which are used to make up DNA. Carbon is at the top because it's the most dominant in forms of life. The message shows more information about DNA, including the double helix structure. Toward the bottom, a figure of a human, its average height, and the population of the Earth, which was a little over 4 billion at the time. Next, our solar system, starting with the sun and moving out to Pluto. The Earth is shifted up to identify the planet sending the signal. At the bottom, a graphic representing the Arecibo radio telescope. Now, the nearest star that could possibly receive the message is 25,000 light years away, so we couldn't really expect a reply for another 50,000 years. But on the morning of August 14th, 2001, a formation was discovered right next to the Chilbolton radio telescope. Now, even if you don't know the full design, when you're on the ground, you can tell you're in a crop circle. There's structure and uniformity to it. But this new formation was different. It was a mess. It wasn't symmetrical. Nobody could make sense of it until it was viewed from the air.
Holy
A face. And 3 days later, this appeared. This became known as the Arecibo answer.
Ay, Chihuahua!
The formation uses the same 23 by 73 grid. The top line shows the numbers 1 through 10, just like the original, but the reply shows silicon as the main element for life, not carbon. Their DNA is shown as having a third string. In the center is a humanoid figure about 4 feet tall with a large head, and their population is about 21 billion. Below the figure is their solar system. They appear to occupy 3 objects in the system, the 3rd and 4th planets, and then there's another shape that could mean a planet or some other object or structure. On the human Arecibo message is a picture of the radio telescope, which was used to send the message. Whoever sent the reply seems to understand this. So what is this design meant to represent? Well, just a year earlier, this formation appeared in the same place. Is this the same object? Is this crop formation a representation of a machine used to communicate through space? Again, frustrated researchers and skeptics agree on something. Why don't they just speak English? Well, almost exactly 1 year later, this formation appeared.
My brain just exploded.
Once again, we see a face, but that's not a human face. And just like the Arecibo message was broadcast in binary code, the disk formation also contains binary code. And for the first time, we get an actual, literal message. The code was translated to letters using ASCII, the encoding standard for electronic communication.
Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time.
Believe.
There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit close.
Whoever it is that wants to communicate with us is using many different means. In 2004, Robert Ridge was deer hunting a few miles outside of Roswell, New Mexico. Half buried in the dirt, he found a strange rock. On the rock is a geometric carving. Robert grabbed it and didn't think it was anything more than a cool rock someone lost at some point. But he didn't keep it a secret. He showed it to friends and anyone who was curious about it. it didn't take long before strange discoveries were made about the rock. For one, it's magnetized lodestone, which is not a kind of rock found in that area. And under a microscope, the Roswell rock is extremely smooth. There's no carving marks or indication of sandblasting. But the most fascinating discovery is that in 1996, 8 years before the Roswell rock was found, this crop formation appeared. The designs match up. Some people think this design is a message. Others think it's a map. Still, others think the Roswell rock, the Arecibo answer, and all crop circles are nothing but a hoax. But who would create such elaborate hoaxes, and why? Well, in 1991, we would get the answer when a British newspaper ran a front-page story with the headline, "The Men Who Con the World."
Oh no.
On September 9th, 1991, two retirees in their 60s confessed to starting the crop circle phenomenon in 1978. Doug Bauer said the idea came to him one night in a pub. He was living in Queensland in 1966 when the Tully UFO left behind that circle of reeds. Doug thought it would be fun to trick people into thinking UFOs were landing in wheat fields in southern England. He enlisted the help of his friend Dave Chorley. All they needed to make a crop circle was a wood plank, a bit of rope, and a twisted piece of wire. At first, their designs were simple and crude, but over time they became more and more complex.
And you could center this through this ring, walk straight towards it, and lo and behold, you got the lovely straight line that you could wish for.
International media picked up the story, and the mystery was solved. Crop circles were nothing more than a couple of amiable old fellows playing a prank, and that was that.
That's it? And the story? It's kind of disappointing.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Oh, go on.
Doug and Dave might have created a few crop circles, but their story has a lot of holes. They demonstrated their circle-making technique, and the results were janky. Most crop formations, even back then, were much more precise. Doug and Dave's formations were out of alignment every time. The more complicated the design, the worse the formations were. During one demonstration for a news crew, Doug attempted to reproduce one of his circles and accidentally made it twice as big as it should have been. Then he just gave up on making it. And their story changed over time. They said they started making circles in 1976. Then it was 1975. Then it was 1978. In fact, they never could agree on the year they actually started. Now, they claimed to have created certain circles and then later said they didn't, but they helped people who did. And Doug and Dave said they created this famous crop circle in 1983 called the Cheesefoot Head Circle. Doug showed a diagram of it, but his diagram had footpaths in it. The circle had no paths. It had no disturbances of any kind. When asked how they created the circle without making tracks in the crop, Doug said they pole vaulted into the field.
Whoa. Did you just say pole vaulted?
Yep. He said in an interview that you should have seen us running through the fields with our sticks sailing over the corn.
Yeah, I would like to see that, actually.
Oh, me too, pal. Apparently these men, in their 60s, pole vaulted into fields carrying their wood boards. They laid down a perfect crop formation and pole vaulted out again. Now, Doug looks pretty fit for an older guy, but he's getting winded walking in a circle. Pole vaulting seems a little outside of his athletic range. They also added details to their story as other crop circles were found. One day, a couple of people investigating a circle told Doug they were looking for a jelly-like substance that was found in a formation. Doug told them it was probably waste ejected from a plane. Later, Doug had a story about making a crop circle, and while he was doing it, he got hit in the head with a piece of frozen waste ejected from a plane's toilet.
And they call those Boeing bombs.
Right.
Don't just take classes, take charge. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu.
Prepare your home for back to school and back to work with fall deals at the Living Spaces Labor Day event. Cozy up with sofas starting at $295. Wind down with queen beds starting at
Yeah, big old frozen chunk of poopy.
He stumbled back to his car, dazed with blood trickling down his face. The problem is, planes don't dump waste over that area. It would be illegal, dangerous, and disgusting. Another story came out about people finding bits of metal thought to be meteorites at crop formations. Soon after that, Doug and Dave's crop circles had little bits of iron scattered all around. So, a few things. Did Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley create some crop circles? Yes. When Doug and Dave came forward, about 1,500 crop circles had been seen in at least 23 countries.
Oh, well, you can't pole vault to Belgium.
Right, even Doug couldn't do that. But they inspired a lot of copycats. Soon most crop formations were man-made. So, is there a scientific way to tell if a crop circle is not a hoax, but genuine? There is. Most crop formations are man-made. The vast majority are. And there are telltale signs of this. Sometimes spotting a man-made crop circle is as simple as finding a footpath through the field leading up to the design. But often crop formations intersect the lines made by tractors called tram lines, which can hide tracks. To spot a hoax, we look at the plants themselves. Man-made crop circles done by flattening plants with boards are destructive to the plants. You'll see cracks and bruises on the stalks. On the ground, the crushed plants look messy. The leaves and flowers will be mashed to the ground. Marks will be visible on only one side of the plant where it was stomped by a plank of wood. Many of those marks are creases where you can actually bend the stalk. Genuine crop circles don't look like this at all. First, the lay of the pattern will flow like water. There's a gentleness to it, an elegance, and many times the stalks are layered and even braided. In genuine crop circles, most plants aren't damaged. They'll continue to grow horizontally and then after a few days return to their vertical position. In this formation found in May 2005, the flowers weren't damaged at all. They were somehow laid down gently. A group of clumsy men with wooden boards couldn't do this. We know this because it was tried. A group of crop circle makers attempted to reproduce this formation. From the air, it looks pretty good, but on the ground, the man-made version is a mess. The plants are trashed. A formation in 2003 was especially puzzling. In parts of the design, the plants weren't completely flattened. They were bent a few inches from the top. It's been described as like the grooves of a record. How do you make this with planks and rope?
You don't.
You don't. Another sign of a genuine circle can be seen, especially in wheat. In late summer, when wheat turns gold, the kernels become heavy and bend over from the weight. They also become stiff and are impossible to straighten. But the wheat within a crop circle, the kernels have straightened out and can't be bent. So what would do this? Radiation. Wheat stalks are separated by structures called apical nodes. These are like the knuckles on your fingers. In the 1990s, biophysicist William Levengood started analyzing plants taken from crop circles. His team found the nodes in crop circle wheat were elongated, and in many cases they were ruptured.
Oh, a rupture on an elongated node? I think they make a cream for that.
This rupture is called an expulsion cavity. The only way this could be replicated is with bursts of microwave radiation. The way your microwave oven works is it heats up water, fats, and sugar in food. Microwave energy is heating up the water in the wheat stalk nodes. The water turns to steam and then they burst, just like popcorn. Now you can't fake this. It happens to the plant internally.
There's no way you can hoax that.
People who claim to have witnessed crop circles being made, and there's quite a few witnesses, report seeing a mist over the pattern immediately after it's formed. This mist is actually steam coming from the plants that were flash heated by microwave radiation. While experimenting with radiation, Levengood found crop circle seed had a huge increase in growth compared to non-crop circle seed. By exposing seeds to short, controlled bursts of radiation, they grow bigger and faster than seeds not exposed to radiation. Another experiment showed that wheat harvested from within a crop circle has a much higher amount of protein than wheat outside the circle. So there's evidence that whatever energy is used to create crop formations is leaving residual traces of this energy in the area. Some crop formations are covered in a dusting of microscopic spheres of magnetized iron, specifically meteorite iron. Researchers call this a magnetic glaze. These spheres are usually found around the perimeter of a formation, and they're distributed linearly, not randomly. Because the iron particles are magnetized perfect spheres, it means they were melted and formed within a highly energetic magnetic field. When people are inside crop formations, many are affected by electromagnetic radiation. Just look at this.
Ja, jeg har rød. Jeg får motsatt, men du ser det sånn nesten. Guri malla, det blir helt sånn. Og nå blir det borte. Nå blir det borte. Da blir det vanlig. Nå blir det vanlig.
Ja, visst.
As part of an experiment, a woman with an enlarged thyroid sat in a crop formation for 2.5 hours. While being monitored by a doctor, her thyroid shrunk by 40%. Often cameras, watches, and other electronic devices stop working inside a crop circle. In fact, pregnant women and people with pacemakers are discouraged from going near one. Now, to skeptics, all this talk about energy sounds woo-woo, but I just showed you the real effects on plants and people. Now, it's fair to say that the elongated nodes and growth rates of wheat could be a coincidence. It's also fair to say that the physical reactions experienced by people could be psychosomatic, all in their minds. But skeptics, how do you explain this? These are called ghost formations or ghost circles. This is when the design of a crop formation is still visible after the field has been plowed. Sometimes a ghost formation remains through the following season. Sometimes it remains for 2 years before finally fading. But this doesn't happen with all crop formations. Nobody knows why, but it could have something to do with where the patterns are found. A study was done in the early 2000s of all the crop circles in southern England found that year. The study showed that 98% of all non-man-made formations were over chalk aquifers. And by the way, chalk aquifers can be used for generating electricity. Everything keeps pointing back to electromagnetism. If there's an epicenter for crop formations in southern England, it's Silbury Hill. Silbury Hill was built thousands of years ago. It's 129 feet tall and covers an area of about 5 acres. Nobody agrees on what it was originally used for, but every year crop formations appear near it, sometimes right next to it. And by the way, the whole thing is one giant pile of chalk. Not far from Silbury Hill is Stonehenge. Crop circles appear there too. One of the most famous of these is called the Stonehenge Surprise. On Sunday, July 7th, 1996, this formation appeared mere feet from Stonehenge. It's been called one of the most complex and spectacular crop circle designs ever seen. The design is a Julius set, a type of fractal. Fractals are visual representations of mathematic formulas that repeat themselves at different scales. Zoom way in or way out, the pattern is the same. Look at how close Stonehenge is to the formation. Look at the visibility. Stonehenge has 24-hour security. The guards saw nothing unusual the night before. Crop formations also appear near Avebury, which is in the same area. The Avebury henge is massive, twice the size of Stonehenge. Now, a ley line is believed to be an invisible path or energy line that connects sacred sites. Ley lines are thought to create a network of energy across the earth, influencing the flow of energy and aligning with cosmic forces. The area around Stonehenge is on one of those ley lines. If crop formations are an attempt at communication, they're clearly using mathematic concepts, and this would make sense. Math is a universal language. But what do the messages mean? What story do they tell? Are crop formations proof of space travel? Do they offer an explanation for space travel? Are crop formations a map? Are they blueprints for a machine? Well, the answer to all those questions is yes. Over the years, crop formations got more and more complex. What started out as simple circles became patterns like this. This is the famous Milk Hill Galaxy Spiral found in 2001. The spiral consists of 409 perfect circles, 1,000 feet across, spread over 700,000 square feet. And look at how clean the design is. That's not even flat ground. This formation is a hard one for skeptics to deal with. Remember, England is pretty far north. In the summer, the days are very, very long. The night the spiral was made, there was only about 4 hours of darkness. It would take a huge crew of people to lay down this pattern in 4 hours. And by the way, it was raining the night it appeared. You'd think the field would be full of muddy footprints by the army of hoaxers it would take to make this. But nope, the Milk Hill Spiral is pristine. Fractals are a common theme with crop formations. Geometric shapes and other expressions of mathematic functions are also quite common. Even complex math problems are expressed. Squaring the circle is a problem in geometry first proposed in Greek mathematics. Squaring the circle involves using a compass and a ruler to create a square and circle with the same area. Now, this has been proven impossible, since calculating the area of a circle requires using pi. And if you remember your math lessons, pi is an irrational number, meaning it can never be exact. So you can never get the area of a circle to equal the area of a square. But there are methods that allow you to get close. And these methods have been seen in crop formations for years. Crop formations often use other mathematic concepts, like the golden ratio and Fibonacci numbers. Here's a formation that, when it appeared, people found very confusing. Then a mathematician solved it. It's a representation of pi out to 10 decimal places. The lengths of the arcs represent each digit. There's even a decimal point and an indication that the number continues forever. But there are also designs that, at first glance, look like geometry, but not exactly right. That's when some researchers had the idea to stop looking and start listening. This particular circle resembles what's called a cymatic pattern. A cymatic pattern is a shape that forms when sound waves vibrate a material like water or sand. Ernst Chladni was a German physicist and musician who documented cymatic patterns. He proved that different sound frequencies create different patterns, and these patterns could be predicted and repeated. Could the builder of this crop circle be telling us that this sound frequency has special meaning? If it does, how do we apply it? Well, let's look for more clues. In 2011, this double spiral formation appeared